Pirate's Most Powerful Villain, Chapter 561-580. Chapter 0561-Dragon Fury. Holy Text M, Power is Miracle. Gerald's specific ability is to materialize his own spiritual power, turning a situation that is absolutely unfavorable to him into a state that is beneficial to him. This is a miracle. At this moment, he suffered an almost fatal wound, and was injured by the water blade on the front, revealing the bones and flesh and blood. Such a serious injury, in turn, can gain absolutely powerful strength. The more damage I take, the more power I gain. Master of the ocean, I will definitely rip off your dragon skin. In the roar, his body swelled rapidly, and in the blink of an eye it was 10 meters, 20 meters, 50 meters, 100 meters. In just a few seconds, a huge giant with a height of nearly 200 meters stood on the ground. The giant had a huge shield in his left arm and a huge sword in his right hand. After he appeared, he laughed loudly and slashed the sea dragon with one sword. Ha ha ha, did you see it? This is the power of miracles. Go to hell. The huge body stepped out in one step, and the earth shook. Seeing his sword slashing, Heilong's eyes were calm, and he immediately raised his head to the sky with a dragon roar. Sea Dragon God. Boom. The huge momentum enveloped the world like a mountain, and I saw the head of the sea dragon, starting from a pair of dragon horns, quickly plated with a layer of golden light. He changed from a dark dragon to a golden dragon. Do you think that you can only become stronger for one stage? With a cold snort, Sea Dragon's body swelled, turning into a kilometer giant dragon in the blink of an eye, and then, with a flick of his dragon's tail, he hit the giant sword that was slashing. Boom! The giant sword stood on the dragon scale, but it shot out a spark, not even a trace left. Impossible. Gerald's pupils shrank, his expression shocked. His sword was enough to split a mountain, but it failed to penetrate the opponent's scales. Before he could exert his strength again, the dragon tail of the sea dragon slapped the giant sword, and the huge force directly shattered the blade, and then a tail slapped his waist and abdomen. Boom! With a loud bang, Gerard's huge body was slammed into the air, flying backwards and flying for thousands of meters in a row. He was like a ball, rolling one after another, directly from the edge area to the center area. Gerald. Yuhabok's complexion changed slightly, and he looked at Sea Dragon from a distance. He raised his right arm high, and suddenly, above his head, a huge longbow of spiritual sun manifested. The Great Sage. Your opponent is me. Yamamoto Motoyasu snorted, swept away with a sword, and the flames swept through. Yuhabok was very angry, and immediately gave up the plan to block the sea dragon. At the same time, the sea dragon walked close to the ground and quickly approached Gerald. His dragon tail rolled up, directly rolling the giant into the air. Asshole! Gerald was furious, but the sea dragon's tail tightly bound him, as if to strangle him to death. As a Quincy master, you are one of the most powerful. Heilong Longmu stared at each other and said calmly, and it is the heart of the Spirit King, and it is almost immortal. With the power of miracles, you are blessed, but in the hands of Benlong, that's what happened, give it up. Give up resistance. Humph. Gerald snorted angrily, stretched out his right hand suddenly, and with a puff, slammed it into his own chest, complete Holy Communion God's power. Boom. A surge of spiritual pressure erupted from the sky, and the surrounding spirits gathered together, quickly healing his wounds. In a short period of time, he recovered as before. Not only that, but his body became larger and larger. Correspondingly, his strength, defense, and agility also increased. Increasingly enhanced. Not only that, but a pair of angel wings were born on his back. Open it for me. He roared and shook violently, freeing himself from the shackles of the sea dragon. The next moment, he grabbed his right hand, and immediately, the spirits of the atmosphere gathered together, turning into a giant sword of spirits. Sword of Hope. The giant sword suddenly chopped off the sea dragon's head, and the spirit child built by its blade vibrated millions of times every moment, like a chainsaw, with extremely strong sharpness. Don't you understand? You increase your power, it doesn't make any sense. There is a gap called level between you and me. The sea dragon uttered a loud dragon roar, and on top of its dragon head, a pair of dragon horns radiated golden brilliance, and went away to meet the hope. Boom! The giant sword stood on the dragon horn and exploded instantly. However, the pair of dragon horns were safe and sound, and it was hard to hurt after a million vibrations. Dragon Fury. In the form of the sea dragon god, the one inspired by the dragon's horns gave one blow. Abandoning the defense, he concentrated his entire body strength on the dragon's sword, and the next moment, a golden light suddenly shot out. Whoosh! Its brilliance is like vertical golden light, it shoots out fiercely, smashing the sword of hope at once, and then, it pierces through Gerald's mouth in an instant. Boom! The golden light flashed and disappeared into the sky. Gerald's eyes widened, his whole body froze there. He maintained the posture of swinging his sword, but there was a huge hole in his chest. PFF'd. He spurted out a large stream of blood, like a rain of blood, and all of a sudden, his body was dipped in blood red. Gerald. Husward was taken aback from a distance. How could in the state of the holy body, he was pierced by a single blow? Did the golden light just now have such power? Yuhabak and Yamamoto Motoyuki, who were fighting, all moved in unison, staring at this scene one after another. This sea dragon, the last time I fought against him, I didn't use all my strength. Yamamoto Yuan Luzai took a breath and thought in shock. The golden light just now, the old man can't stop it, he can only hide. In terms of lethality alone, Dragon's wrath surpasses his heaven and earth destruction. If this golden light goes towards the sky, I am afraid that it will be able to penetrate the Lingwang Palace from here. I'm immortal. At this moment, the fallen giant suddenly stopped and roared in the sky. The next moment, in the entire space, countless spiritual children gathered, and behind them, a figure gradually condensed. This time, the cluster of spirits is already a rain of light visible to the naked eye. The rain of light, one after another, gathers from all directions, and quickly condenses a giant of light. God's power final form. Seeing this, Heilong raised his eyebrows. This should be the strength of the Spirit King's heart. It's really tenacious. It has been strengthened in 3 stages before and after. In this state, it is impossible to kill them, and it is difficult to arrest them. Gerald is like a perpetual motion machine. Once killed, he becomes stronger once. This is a miracle. The giant of light roared loudly, and then reached out with one hand, arguing for the sea dragon to grab it. However, at this moment, above the sky, the space ripples. Then, a man in a long snow-white coat stepped out. What? Gerald Vivi was startled, feeling a great crisis. This emperor has run out of patience. Qin Yang's expression was indifferent. Facing the giant's hand, Vivi stretched out a finger. Fantasy is wiped out. In an instant, time freezes and space stagnates. It was as if the whole world had fallen into absolute stillness under this finger. The next moment, bang! The giant of light shattered, turned into a rain of light, and dispersed. How is this possible? Hasward paled in horror. Just a finger. Chapter 0562-capture done 2. Under one finger, the world is silent. When the palm of the giant of light touched this finger, it was like ice and snow encountered flames and melted in an instant. Impossible. Gerald only felt that the body of light was unstable, as if it was interfered by some kind of force, as if the heaven and the earth did not allow him to exist. In the end, with a loud bang, his body collapsed and finally scattered into the sky. Seeing this, Qin Yang slowly retracted a finger, and at the same time grabbed his right hand in the air. A thumping heart suddenly fell into his hand. Capture complete. The left arm, right arm, and heart have all been captured. No, to be precise, the right arm has not yet been captured, and only Shuru Yukitaki was caught. Seeing this scene, Yuhabak's eyes were as cold as frost. What do you mean? Are you going to break the pact? Hearing this, Qin glanced at him and said calmly, Yuhabak, instead of caring about your subordinates, you should deal with Yamamoto Motoyasu. Dragon flew in the distance. That was the Deathwing. On the top of Deathwing's head, Yukatake Shuru stood side by side with Uno Hanaritsu. Qin took a step forward, and immediately shuttled through the space, appearing directly above Deathwing's head. The target has been captured. Everyone, follow me into Spirit King Palace. Yes, Lord Qin Emperor. The wings of death flapped their wings and flew away in the sky. Wait. Yuhabak's expression changed, and he immediately chased after him. You bastard, do you want to swallow the Spirit King for yourself? I saw a flash of golden light and shadow, the sea dragon intercepted in front, and at the same time, a dragon breath spurted out. In an instant, hundreds of millions of tons of seawater appeared on the sky, and then violently suppressed it. Yuhabak, you'd better deal with Saraiti first. In the face of such a huge amount of seawater, Yuhabak can only temporarily avoid the edge. Damn. Sea Dragon seems to be the master. Looking down at all living beings, Yamoto Yuanyusai, I am waiting to have a deal with the Spirit King. You don't need to know why. You can just try to defeat Yuhabak. Then, goodbye. Between the words, he flicked his dragon tail and immediately followed Deathwing. Shuanglong took to the air, quickly climbed the height, and headed towards the location of the Lingwang Palace. Not far away, Aizen, who had been fighting all the time, saw this, and Isho immediately followed with one step. He walked in the air, like walking on a staircase. Seeing this, Yuhabak's face was extremely ugly. Hasward. Yes, what is your Majesty's order? As of now, I only have to open my eyes. Yuhabak said coldly, bring your guards to Lingwang Palace to stop them from waiting until I arrive. Yes. B is greater than or equal to. Hasward nodded, and immediately waved his hand, and suddenly, the whole person turned into a sacred arrow. The next moment with a swoosh, he shot towards the sky rapidly. Q. Yamamoto is overweight. Withdrew his gaze, his eyes indifferent. Do you think Bankai can defeat me? Use your body to experience the power of omniscience and omnipotence. Between the words, his eyes changed. In his eyes, 3 pupils appeared. I know everything about the future, and all the power I know is under my control. At the same time, all the Quincy exterminators within the Invisible Empire felt a sense of collapse. Holy! There are 72 barriers between the Reiki Palace and the Sarange. However, in order to hurry up the Saraiti as soon as possible, the Shinigami group used Tianqing to move, thus breaking 72 barriers. Normally, these protective walls will be restored after half an hour. However, now half an hour has not come. I saw above the sky, 2 dragons flying in the sky, and behind them, one person stepped into the air and rushed with an arrow. 10 minutes later, when all the 72 barriers passed, the Spirit King Palace appeared in front of them. 5 huge floating islands. In the center of the island, is a large inner space that exists like a cocoon. On a semicircular platform, 3 figures descended one after another. Qin took the lead and kept his feet on the ground. He looked up at the front and saw a woman dressed in Mei Yan, standing quietly. Long time no see, Emperor Qin. Dajisho, you stopped at the entrance just to see me. Qin chuckled softly and said, King Ling asked you to come. No, we are Team Zero, and it is our duty to guard the Spirit Palace. We also ask Emperor Qin to stop. Chinshumaru Shutara covered her mouth and smiled. The other day, the concubine is willing to wait for the wine, wait for the bed, and drink 3 cups with Emperor Qin. I don't want to drink your poisoned wine. Qin was very calm, unmoved by the beauty. It seems that you don't know anything, the King Spirit didn't tell you. If King Spirit is still awake, he won't let Team Zero stop him here, and it is estimated that he would like to get there soon so that he can absorb his left arm, right arm and heart. Since Team Zero is intercepting here, it means that the King of Spirit is in a deep sleep. How can you go back? Kianjumaru Shutara gritted his teeth and said, Divine Soldier. She drank softly, and suddenly, hundreds of figures dressed in black tight-fitting death tyrants dressed like ninjas suddenly appeared. Can these things keep me from waiting? Qinyang was speechless. You might as well do a dance, maybe I'll stop and appreciate it for a while. Shaking his head, he asked Deathwing and Sea Dragon to guard the entrance, and then his mind moved. A golden light flickered and emerged from Shang's mouth. This brilliance turned into a sound and shadow in front. Ori, please give in. Seeing this person, Senjumaru Shutara's pretty face turned cold. When did you become a dreamer, King of Knights? When? That's not true. The King of Knights slowly drew out the matching sword. Not a knight of the Round Table, but a promise of victory. I have been a dream cadre from the beginning. It turned out to be like this. Chinshumaru Shutara gritted his teeth, and immediately shouted, Go ahead, magic weapon. As soon as the voice fell, hundreds of divine soldiers moved in unison and quickly approached the King of Knights. Don't make indifferent resistance, you don't even know about our deal with the Spirit King. The King of Knights shook his head, raised his sword high, noble phantasm liberation. Excalibur. Boom. The golden light soared into the sky and turned into an incomparably huge golden lightsaber. Then, the sword fell sharply. Seeing this, Kianjumaru Shutara's pupils shrank, and the bones behind her arms crossed in front of Shang. Shield of 1,000 hands. In an instant, a commoner was woven into a round shield to block the blow. However, the many divine soldiers in front of him were instantly turned into ashes under this blow. Boom! A huge explosion, setting off thick dust. After a long time, the smoke dissipated. Kianjumaru Shutara's face was pale, and blood was overflowing from the corners of her mouth, obviously very uncomfortable. However, at the next moment, the three figures of Qin Emperor had already surpassed her defense. If you can't stop it, don't waste your efforts. Wherever I'm waiting, I'll be invincible ahead. Between the words, the three of them have already set foot on the stairs leading to the Spirit King Palace. Chapter 0563_Shatter the Spirit Palace. It feels so good to code at home ORZ. The three of Qinyang jumped over the 1,000-hand Maru Shutara and stepped onto the stairs leading to the Lingwang Palace. Wait. Seeing this, Senjumaru Shutara immediately turned around and shouted, Second, level divine soldier, the shield of the Spirit King, stop them. As soon as the voice fell, 3 behemoths suddenly fell from the sky. The 3 men were burly, covered in pitch-black armor, 10 meters tall, and appeared on the stairs. Heavy ground ahead, stop here. One of them scolded coldly. Blue dye. Qinyang was unmoved, and still walked up slowly. He said softly, Since you are here, clean up the trash. Is it exposed? As expected of Emperor Qin. I saw below the stairs, beside Senjumaru Shutara, the space was torn apart like a picture scroll, and Aizen Soyusuk slowly revealed. What? Kianjumaru Shutara's eyes widened, and his heart was horrified. Huguang. 26 Bonded Road, Huguang. Cover yourself with a transparent canvas made of reishi, making yourself invisible. But it's just stealth, it can't hide Reiatsu. What's going on? Chinshumaru Shutara stared at Aizen coldly. At such a close distance, my concubine can't even notice your breath. Of course it's because your level is too low. Kianjumaru. Aizen smiled. An ant can't understand the world of an elephant, and a frog can't speak to the sea. Glancing at her, Aizen ignored her, but stepped up and walked up the stairs. It's like the second-level divine soldier at the top of the stairs. The combat power in a single round is roughly equivalent to the captain level of the 13th team of the Guardian, but just like this, it can't stop even 1 second the 90 of the way. The Black Coffin. Aizen whispered softly, and when he took a step, a dark coffin suddenly rose up on the stairs in front of him, and instantly blocked the shields of the 3 Spirit Kings. The next moment, with a bang, the black coffin shook, and then slowly dispersed. Qinyang had just finished walking the 36 steps and stepped onto the platform one step at a time. The shields of the three spirit kings had been beaten with holes by the black coffins, and they fell to both sides, as if they were bowing to the ground to greet them. Huh. Qinyang raised his eyebrows and looked forward. At the end of the platform, Kirin Temple Tenshiro and Ermewu Wang Yu stood one after another. How's it going so far? King Yu said, if possible, we don't want to fight you at all, Emperor Qin. Fight me, did you misunderstand something? Qinyang didn't stop, he still walked away. When did you have the illusion that you can fight me? Between the words, Qinyang snapped his fingers gently. The next moment, above his head, a sacred shadow flashed. The light gathers, the angels come. 7. I am the ruler of the sky, the holy archangel. Iota. The holy light of the 10-winged archangel shines brightly, like a god descending into the world, extremely holy. It's ironic that an angel with such pure divine power is the dominant cadre of an evil organization. Qilin Temple Tianqilang snorted and spat out a straw in his mouth, then he jumped suddenly, waved the long stick in his hand, and shouted, Shine, Jin Pigia. Boom. A board was slapped on the ground, and the next moment, the hot spring water immediately stirred up, rushing towards Qinyang and others like the tides of the sea. Bath water. Qinyang directly ignored the attack and stepped forward to meet it. I saw the tidal hot spring water, the moment it touched Qinyang, bizarrely separated to both sides, as if there was an invisible force, dividing it. Immediately afterwards, the space was distorted, and the distorted power wrapped Qinyang and the three of them, and then flashed and flickered, and instantly appeared behind the two Wu Wangyu. Space Shuttle. Ermewu Wangyu's complexion changed slightly, and suddenly turned around. Ujawali, Yukataki Shuru, you too, don't you say a word like that. He. Yukataki Shuru let out a series of low laughs. Vivi turned around and chanted, 97 of the Binding Tao, the world is so close. Boom boom boom. In an instant, the distance between the two should be only a few meters, but at this moment, it seems to be extending indefinitely. This is only a mere 3 or 5 steps away, like a gap between the sky and the earth, which is difficult to cross. This. Ermewu Wangyu's eyes widened. When can you even give up singing on the number 97 bondage? The ability of this ghost path is very straightforward, blocking the target in an infinite space, up, down, left, right, southeast, northwest, no matter which direction it is, it seems to be close to the horizon. Of course, this is the full version of number 97 Binding Road. The move in front of him is just to infinitely lengthen the spatial distance between Shiruro Yukataki and Wang Yu of Ermewu. I'm not the Shiro Yukataki you know. Shadow Demon pouted, turned around and followed in the footsteps. I won't cancel this move until his spiritual pressure is exhausted, so don't chase after him, you won't be able to catch up. In the depths of his consciousness, the real Yukataki Shuru murmured in shock, abandoning his singing and resorting to the number 97 bondage. Is this me? He couldn't use it himself, but he was controlled by the shadow demon and could use it instead. Not to mention his inner thoughts, Ermewu Wangyu watched as Qinyang and the three walked away. The distance between the two sides is infinitely extended. Unless he can travel through space, he will not be able to catch up. Of course, if it is a great ghost master, a god of death who is very good at ghosts, using the forbidden technique, space stills, can easily crack this trick. Sadly, he doesn't. Damn, monk. Thinking of this, he immediately shouted, not yet. Very far away, right in front of the platform, about 10,000 meters away, a black ring appeared in the sky. In the center of the ring is a word, hidden. At this moment, the hidden word peels off, revealing everything behind it. That is the Spirit King Palace, the real Spirit King Palace. At the entrance, a soldier from the main army sat cross-legged, looked at the fake entrance from a distance, and sighed, it's like a broken bamboo, and it can't stop it at all. Thinking of this, he immediately slapped it with a palm, 1,000-mile palm. Boom! A huge palm, like the hand of a great Buddha, was crushed violently. After its attack, it swelled rapidly, and after crossing the 10,000-meter giant, it already covered the sky, and a single finger was comparable to a building. He he he. Seeing this, Qin chuckled lightly and said, "It's like blocking my footsteps with a distance of 10,000 meters. Are you afraid of a soldier in the main division of the army? Fear is close to me, and a part of your body will be separated from you. Go." As soon as the voice fell, in front of Qin, an equally huge giant hand suddenly appeared. What you fear will manifest, and all illusions will become reality. Illusions manifest. Boom. The fear from the god of death turned into an illusion, distorted reality, and gave birth to a huge palm. The big hand that covers the sky is like the arm of an ancient giant. Each of its 5 fingers is hundreds of meters in size, and its stoutness is comparable to the last city wall in the world. Looking at this scene, a soldier's expression changed greatly. What the hell is going on? No power fluctuations are perceived. Is this an illusion? No, it's real. The next moment, the 2 palms collided immediately. Boom! The huge forces collided with each other, and the space of the Lingwang Palace was shattered in an instant. The space was distorted, and the thunder light flickered. The shock wave visible to the naked eye swept away in an instant. Oops! Meiwu Wang Yu's pupils shrank. If you fight like this, the entire Lingwang Palace will be shattered. Chapter 0564-Reborn Spirit King. If you fight like this, the entire Spirit King Palace will be shattered. Wang Yu's complexion changed drastically, but she was powerless to stop everything. Above the sky, the 2 giant palms slammed against each other, and the impact they swept out all at once. Such terrifying power leaked out, and the 5 halls of the Spirit King Palace shook one after another. The closest one is the Phoenix Palace. Time crashes. The entire Phoenix Hall was shattered by the impact, turned into 3 or 5 pieces, and slowly fell downwards. After more than 10 seconds, this terrifying confrontation gradually disappeared. The head of the soldier's headguard's expression was extremely solemn. He stood up, and Vivi narrowed his eyes, looking at the direction of Qin through the distance of 10,000 meters. However, there is no figure there. I saw ripples in the space behind him, and then the 3 of Qin came out in an instant. Don't get in the way, I'm waiting to make a deal with the Spirit King. This time, I'm just here by appointment. Leaving a sentence, Qin didn't bother to pay attention to it, and went straight to the inside of King Ling. Deal? What deal? Hearing this, a soldier in the main army suddenly turned around and pointed at Qin with a huge brush in his hand. No matter what, you can't pass here. This splash of ink suddenly wrote a magic word. In an instant, the surrounding space became illusory, like being in a mirage. All the truth was covered up. I'll leave it to you. Qin ignored these fantasies, cooperated with the 2 shadow demons, and passed through directly. The next moment, where he was standing, Aizen's figure suddenly appeared. The great evil, Aizen Sosuke. The soldier's headguard's face was grim, and his eyes burst out with killing intent. Get out of the way now, I can still forgive you for betrayal. You are also qualified to forgive me. Lan Ran raised his brows and mocked. Do you think you can always stand at the top? Times are changing, monk, you can't keep up with the times. Between the words, he stretched out a palm flatly. The 99th of the path, the 5 dragons are destroyed. Roar. The dragon roared, and the huge spiritual pressure that erupted from Aizen's body, 10 times that of the captain, turned into a 5-headed spiritual dragon in the sky above his head, roaring, and he opened his teeth and danced his claws toward the soldier's main body. A soldier. And go. HMPH, mere brat, how dare you speak out? A soldier in the main division of the army snorted coldly, dye it black. One word. The tip of his brush turned into a blade, which was the liberation of Zanpakuto. Submissive to that kind of thing, you are really despised. Lan Ran grinned, and with her flat outstretched right palm, flipped it abruptly. The next moment, 5 dragons playing with beads, flipping through the pages, suddenly fell. Inside the Great Spirit King is a 5-story building like a cocoon. At the lowest level, Qin Yang, Mao Zhawali, and Ying Yao had just stepped into this place when hundreds of first-level divine soldiers suddenly appeared. Intruder, Fantasy Qin Emperor. One of the divine soldiers who looked like a captain said solemnly, "The betrayer, Ujawali. The betrayer, Shuru Yukataki. Please stop. Where's the nonsense?" Qin Yang was indifferent and stepped out. Boom. In an instant, between heaven and earth, a heavy momentum was born. This momentum shrouded the entire Spirit King's interior and was applied to the shoulders of all the divine soldiers. In an instant, hundreds of divine soldiers, including the squad leader, knelt down in unison. With a bang, hundreds of people couldn't bear the heavy pressure and were deterred by the momentum. "Let's go, the destination is ahead." Walking through the crowd of kneeling grounds, Qin Yang stepped up the stairs to the second floor. The second floor also has defense, but it is also crushed by the momentum, and there is no resistance at all. The 3 of them went all the way, and finally reached the top floor. In the empty room, the door of the Japanese style was directly blasted open. Qin Yang stepped in, and he could see at a glance that in the center of the room, behind the opened curtain, a sexless body without arms was frozen by ice. Sealed. Spirit King. Qin Yang chuckled and walked over directly. "A guest is visiting, but you are sleeping." As if hearing these words, the frozen Spirit King slowly opened his eyes. "Emperor Qin." The Spirit King's mouth did not move, but the voice came out directly, "It seems that you have completed the agreement. Your left arm, your heart." Qin Yang stretched out his hand and tore apart the space, and then a huge left arm and a heart were thrown out. Seeing this, the pupils of the Spirit King flickered, and the next moment, the left arm and heart dissolved into black pure power, and quickly penetrated into the ice, nourishing the fragile body of the Spirit King. Zzz. On top of the Spirit King's body, the left arm slowly rose out, and the heart would have been classified, and the resulting beating quickly restored its strength. The right arm, he turned his eyes to Shuru Yukataki, "Can you please untie him?" Shadow Demon. Hearing this, the Shadow Demon immediately undid the shadow doll and emerged from Shuru's shadow. As soon as he left, Shuru Shizuku immediately took control of his body. He looked at the Spirit King in shock and said, "Lord Spirit King, what's going on?" No matter how stupid he was, he could guess at this moment what the transaction between King Ling and Emperor Qin was about. "Shuru Shizuku," King Ling said lightly, "when you were 3 years old, you were critically ill, and your parents sent you to the ancestral hall of the One-Eyed God. The One-Eyed God took your lungs away at the cost of letting you go. Continued to survive. The One-Eyed God is the right arm of the Spirit King, in charge of stillness. Stillness is not to heal Shiroku Yukataki, but to make the others, death, still, that is to say, Shiruro Yukataki's death will always stay at the moment of his childhood." Hearing this, Shiro Yukataki had already anticipated something, and he said with a shaky expression, "Lord Spirit King, what exactly do you want to do?" "It's been a long time, how many years?" Spirit King reminisced in his tone, as if he was recalling the past. "Guarding the soul realm, maybe I have feelings for you, Death God." Hearing this, Qin Yang raised his eyebrows. "It's you, not us. It's kind of interesting. The Spirit King is obviously not the god of death, and even among the gods of death, there is an indelible hatred. Of course, this is just speculation. The most interesting thing is that the Spirit King's arms, heart, and even legs are all torn apart and split out. Who did this? It will never be done by the Spirit King himself. The answer is likely to be the god of death. The god of death needs the chicken of the Spirit King for some reason, but in order to ensure that the other party does not resist, the limbs are divided by 5.8 and scattered everywhere. This is probably some kind of transaction, or something else. There are countless reasons for this kind of transaction, and this is only Qin Yang's subconscious inference. Of course, he wasn't interested in this. Any grievances between the Spirit King and the Death God were trivial matters. Come back, then, my last right arm. The Spirit King issued a call, and locked his right arm through the coordinates of Shiruro Yukitake. The next moment, Shiruro Yukitake let out a scream, and a dark power quickly poured out of his body. This is the power of the Spirit King. This force poured into the ice, and finally made the Spirit King's right arm grow out again. The next moment, bang! Ice block shattered, and the naked Spirit King stepped out from behind the curtain. After countless years, I recovered. The Spirit King moved the newborn's hands and murmured, and the last my son, Yohabak. Chapter 0565 I haven't seen you in 1,000 years, my son. The third update Death is coming to an end. The next world is not the fairy tale, it should be a novel world. The Spirit King absorbed his right arm, left arm, and heart. His limbs were healthy, his internal organs were regenerated, his strength was restored, and the ice seal was easily broken. At this moment, while the shards of ice were flying, he stepped out from behind the curtain. After countless years, I recovered. He murmured calmly, a nostalgic power. His pupils are like cross stars, the whites of his eyes are black, but the pupils are white. Huh. Suddenly, the King of Spirit was stunned. What's going on? I can't see the future, haven't my strength recovered? He muttered to himself, all kinds of future pictures flashing in his pupils. Whispering like this, he looked at Emperor Qin and seemed to be asking. At this moment, a black cavity was torn apart in the room, and Aizen slowly walked out. Behind him, Wolkiora, Nelly, and Doflamingo were 3 people. I interfered with the future. Aizen Vivi Isho said, introduce yourself, I'm Aizen from outside the world, Dream, the current deputy leader. Saying that, the 3 Doflamingo behind him all knelt down on one knee, see Lord Qin Emperor. As Aizen's subordinates, they should salute when they see Emperor Qin. Hearing this, the Spirit King fell into silence. After talking with your shadow demon last time, I fell into a deep sleep. Now it seems. He calculated the past and quickly got the answer. It turns out that, no wonder, the future is interfered and cannot be seen through, and my son, Yohabak can't sit still. Having said that, he looked at Emperor Qin and said, my deal with you is still one last step away. The last step. Qin Yang raised his eyebrows, but looked at Shuru, the dead Su Sheng. He slowly stretched out his right hand, and the rainbow light in the palm of his hand flashed, shining on Shiruro Yukitake. Shiruro Yukitake, who was still in a dying state just a moment ago, his critically ill body is rejuvenating at a speed visible to the naked eye. It is not the rejuvenation in appearance, but the recovery of bodily organs. Shiro Yukitake felt the increase in vitality, and suddenly raised his head in surprise. Why do you want to save me? Why? Qin Yang chuckled softly, you are my excellent subordinate. In the future, this world will still need your management, right, Lai? Yes. Ujawali Vivi nodded, Captain Uzumaki, this is the fastest way to peace. What's going on, Captain Unoka? Please clarify. Hearing this, Maozihua Lai pursed her lips, asked Qin Yang's opinion, and finally nodded, saying, since you want to know, let me tell you, from the day we entered the Lingwang Palace, I and Zaraki speaking of Captain Deathmatch. Ignore the conversation between the two for the time being. Shui equals. Qin Yang turned to look at King Ling and said, what is the last step? Saying that, he ordered in his heart, Han, scan. Scanning is over. Discover the origin of the world, it's huge. Fantasy Jean replied without emotion. To regain the arms and heart, the origin of the world is 10 times larger than before, but there is still a little missing, and it is almost complete. At the same time, King Ling said, the last step, of course, is my son. You should know why Yuhabak wants to attack Lingwang Palace. As he spoke, he walked towards the door. He is to devour my power. Like the arms and heart, Yohabak is also a differentiation of my power. However, he is different from the simple limbs and organs. He is a human being, but when he is still in the mother's body, contaminated with the blood of my spirit king, and gained, most, of my power. Yuhabak is the blood of the spirit king. Qinyang raised his eyebrows. So, your blood created the Quincy race. Of course, you know that human beings are attacked by the power of emptiness when they are babies. When they grow up, they will acquire spiritual power. Similarly, as a baby, Yuhabak, who has obtained the blood of the spirit king, will naturally become extinct. The king of teachers. As expected of the origin of the world, a drop of blood creates a race. It is similar to the true dragon bloodline of the sea dragon. A drop of blood of the sea dragon can also create a new race, but it is not as exaggerated as Yuhabak. Now, please come with me next term and take back my power. Between the words, the Spirit King has reached the entrance of the big inner. He looked down, and at Spirit King Amadasanda, many parties were fighting. The King of Knights, the Archangel, Aizen, and Team Zero. In the melee, Team Zero is losing ground. It's really a lively day. The Spirit King Palace hasn't been so noisy for a long time. The King Ling was expressionless, his eyes drooped slightly, and he looked down. His eyes seemed to penetrate an endless distance, and he saw the location of the Hara-Touring writing, the disintegration of the Invisible Empire, the disintegration of the Invisible Empire, the Yohabak, and the Yamamoto Yuanyujai's corpse. Is Yamamoto Shigekuni dead? He murmured softly, and then his voice spread throughout the entire Lingwang Palace. Team Zero, no need to fight. Hearing this, a soldier and the others in the main division of the army all changed their expressions and looked up. Lord Spirit King. The enemy is Yuhaba, now, come down with me. Speaking, Spirit King Vivi raised his hand, and immediately, the entire Spirit King Palace began to vibrate. Fall down. With a light drink, in an instant, the entire Spirit King Palace, wrapped in the big inner, the Lingfan Hall, Amadasanda, and the entire Spirit King Palace space began to fall rapidly. Beside him, Qinyang thought in surprise, this Spirit King Palace space was created by the Spirit King himself. No wonder it can be controlled at will. Speaking of which, it is too similar to the Spirit Child space of the Invisible Empire. He is not in a hurry to swallow the Spirit King, because the other party is still a little short, not complete. Just wait for Yuhabak to swallow the Spirit King, or the Spirit King swallows Yuhabak, and when everything is complete, he will suppress the entire world with the illusion world. At this moment, the entire Spirit King Palace fell rapidly, and its speed was like a rush of lightning, and in just a few minutes, it had already descended over the Invisible Empire. Meanwhile, in the heart of the Invisible Empire, Yamamoto Yuanyujai's body was separated, and his right arm, head, and half of his body were all cut off by a sword. Beside this body, Yuhabak looked at each other with cold eyes, forcing me to use the holy eye opening. This is your destination, Yamamoto Shigekuni. Saraiti has fallen, next. However, before his voice fell, suddenly, above his head, the inner world of the Spirit King suddenly appeared. What? Yuhabak's complexion changed greatly, he suddenly raised his head, and at a glance, his pupils shrank. At the top of the big inner, in front of the window of a platform, Emperor Qin and King Ling stood side by side. Impossible, you actually recovered. Yuhabak was shocked, and then looked at Qinyang. You did it. He. Qinyang looked down at the other party and chuckled. Before the agreement with you, I waited for another agreement with the Spirit King. The content of the agreement with you is only to dispatch combat power and participate in the attack. No matter which one, I will not wait. Breach of contract. Quote. Hearing this, Yuhabak's face was ashen, and blue veins burst out on his forehead. At this time, King Ling said lightly, I haven't seen you in 1,000 years, my son. Chapter 0566_Yohabak on the run. I haven't seen you in 1,000 years, my son. The Spirit King stepped out and stood in the void. He looked down at Yuhabak without showing the slightest expression on his face. He is naked and has no gender. He does not need to open and close his mouth when speaking. All sounds are like laws and can be transmitted directly. Yuhabok's eyes narrowed, and a spiritual platform was born under his feet, holding him up slowly. Spirit King, no, my father. I'm really surprised to see you again in this situation. He glanced at Qinyang and said lightly, you will join forces with the Dream Emperor Qin before me. I have to say, this is beyond my expectations. But, can he really trust him? What is the basis of this? Is this basis reliable? Even if one moment is reliable, what about the next moment? Quote. Sao Discord. Qinyang shook his head inwardly and watched calmly. He never had any trust with the Spirit King. It was just a simple transaction, even though there were some loopholes in this transaction. After hearing his words, King Ling shook his head and said, yes, you lost to Yamamoto Shigekuni 1,000 years ago. Why didn't he kill you? What do you think is the reason? Thousands of years ago, a war broke out between Quincy and Death. At the beginning of the war, the Quincy master had a great advantage, but the Death god suddenly used the power called Benkai to turn the tide of the war in an instant. The final result was that the Quincy was defeated and Yuhabok was defeated. At that time, Death's side did have the ability to destroy Yuhabok, but in the end it was the Spirit King who let him go. You have my blood flowing in your body, so I let you go. There is no need to fight between the god of death and the Quincy. Hearing this, Yuhabok sneered and said, Spirit King, you have been a Spirit King for a long time. Have you forgotten who you are? You are guarding the soul realm. Have you finally lost yourself? If the Spirit King's power is not restrained by the Spirit King's own will, then this power will run wild and annihilate all the gods of death. It can be said that between the power of the Spirit King and the god of death, there is an endless existence. You have disappointed me. The Spirit King looked at Yuhabok and said softly, now, I'm tired of it. It's time to take back the power I gave you. HMPH, my strength is my strength. Yuhabok snorted coldly and immediately raised his hand, spiritual gathering. As soon as the voice fell, in an instant, all the spirits in the entire atmosphere were madly gathering towards Yuhabok's palm. Holy Slayer. The light group of the spiritual child visible to the naked eye is like a substance. After it solidifies, it turns into a sacred arrow and then shoots out suddenly. The instant the arrow flew out, it immediately expanded and turned into a giant of dozens of meters. It was as fast as lightning, piercing the sky and aiming at the forehead of the Spirit King. Seeing this, the Spirit King slowly stretched out his right hand and said, useless resistance, Yuha, can't you even see through your own future? Between the words, the arrow of the huge sacred annihilation arrow first touched the right arm of the Spirit King. However, in the next instant, everything fell into absolute stillness. All the fluctuations of the spiritual sun of this sacred arrow have been frozen, and they have completely lost their power. Then, with a puff, the arrow shattered, turning into a rain of spiritual rain. Seeing this scene, Qinyang raised his eyebrows and said secretly, as the right hand, still. It turns out that this is not the stillness of time or the stillness of space, but a kind of authority as the world's wedge. Just like Deathwing, as the guardian of the earth, he was born with the power to control the earth. In the same way, the right hand of the Spirit King is still, and it is also a similar power. If you want to say it, it should be a rule and a rule. After thinking about it carefully, Qinyang estimated that the phantom body of the Great Master level is not necessarily the opponent of the Spirit King. The only one who can fight against the Spirit King and defeat him is the Phantom Aizen, who is a 6-star deputy leader. Of course, the ontology illusory god also holds the power of the law, the erasing of illusions, the realization of illusions, etc., are all powers of the same nature, and dealing with the Spirit King is not a problem at all. Thinking of this, he continued to stand at the top of the big inner, quietly watching the battle of father and son. Ha ha ha. At this time, Yuhabok laughed in a low voice. Ling Wang, you have probably forgotten that my ability is omniscient and almighty. If you use, still, in front of you, you are already unconscious. One of the characteristics of omniscience and omnipotence is to know the essence of all powers, and the powers that are known will be ineffective against Yuhabak. Speaking of this, Yuhabak suddenly looked at Qin Yang and said, the agreement between me and you is still in the balance. Join hands with me to deal with the King of Spirit. The future world, you and I share. How about it? Sharing. Qin Yang Isho said, do you know what the deal between King Ling and me is? He handed over the whole world, and your stake is too low. After a pause, he added, don't worry, I will not help King Ling to deal with you, nor will I help you deal with King Ling. Your grievances will be resolved by yourself. Now, I am just an ordinary spectator. Really, hope you don't regret it. Yuhabak snorted coldly, stared deeply at Qin Yang, and then waved a black shadow. The realm of shadows. The dark image is a curtain, blocking a large space and completely shrouding Yuhabak. The next moment, the field shrank and quickly collapsed into a single point, and finally this small black spot completely disappeared. Run. Doflamingo was stunned, and then mocked. Fur, it sounds so nice, but I just tried it out and ran away immediately. Hearing this, Hanshin Eisen smiled and said, he is not running, but to absorb the power of his son. As he said that, he turned his eyes and looked towards the north. Kurosaki Ichigo gasped for breath. After being shot by Deathwing's Genesis meteor, he was sniped by the Star-Crossed Knights of the Invisible Empire, defeating 2 members in a row, and barely survived. Of course, these 2 members, logically speaking, are not opponents at all, but just now, a holy light suddenly fell from the sky. It seems that they were affected by the holy light. The strength of the 2 members declined, and he was easily killed by him. What he didn't know was that the holy light was Yuhabak's sanctification. In order to deal with Yamamoto Yuanyujai, Yuhabak had to open his eyes, and because of the opening, he needed to retrieve the sanctuary that was distributed to the members of the Star-Crossed Knights. Strength. A palace came down just now over there. Ichigo Kurosaki breathed steadily and looked up at the center area. However, at this moment, a shadow of darkness spread out from the space in front of it, and a figure emerged from the darkness. Seeing this person, Ichigo Kurosaki's expression froze. Uncle Zanyu. No, you are. My name Yuhabak. Yuhabak, who was wearing a scarlet cloak, grinned and said, I need your strength, Ichigo Kurosaki, who was born in darkness my son. At the same time, the Spirit King was in the inside. At the top of it, Qin Yang withdrew his gaze and pouted his lips disdainfully. As expected, he went to plunder power. What a shame, Yuhabak. Chapter 0567_Kazuki Urahara. Born in the dark my son. Hearing this, Ichigo Kurosaki was stunned at first, then his eyes turned cold. Yuhabak, you are the king of the Quincy, the ultimate culprit who wants to destroy the world. Destroy the world. Yuhabak shook his head and said, I don't want the world to be destroyed. My long-cherished wish is to create a new world of peace, no pain, and no death. For this lofty ideal, Ichigo, dedicate your power to give it to me. Seeing it keep approaching, Ichigo Kurosaki subconsciously retreated. His face was ugly, he clenched the Zanyu in his hand, pointed the blade at Yuhabak, and said, don't be kidding. I'm here, but I'm here to stop you. Are you going to stop me? Ichigo, are you going to take action on your father? Yuhabak's eyes were indifferent. Vivi reached out, and suddenly a field of shadows opened, quickly spreading towards Kurosaki Ichigo. Time is running out. I don't have time to play with you. Hurry up and hand over your power. The large shadow is like an invisible big hand, sticking to the ground, quickly shrouded towards Kurosaki Ichiro. In the blink of an eye, Ichigo Kurosaki was surprised to find that his front, back, left, right, and all directions were covered by black shadows, and these black shadows were swallowing his body. What? Kurosaki Ichigo's heart tightened, and he waved his sword indiscriminately in an attempt to cut through these shadows. At the same time, lines appeared on his body surface, which were the quiet blood clothes of the Quincy exterminator. Seeing this, Yuhabak said with approval. As expected of a son of darkness, with an excellent bloodline, possessing the power of 3 lines, as a half-blood Quincy, just awakening the power of a Quincy, you can learn it by yourself. Still blood suit, your talent is above many pure blood quenchers. Between the words, the shadow of darkness has bound Kurosaki Ichigo, like a palm, and lifted it up. Then, stop struggling, I interfere with your consciousness space, and use the identity of Zanyu, to force you to awaken the power of the quencher, waiting for this moment. Yuhabak walked in front of him, and pressed his palm lightly on Ichigo Kurosaki's chest. In an instant, the still blood costume flashed even more dazzlingly. You have my blood flowing in you, and just by touching it, the power in your body resonates. It's amazing. Now, these powers will all be mine. Yuhabak's 3 pupils flashed madly, and then, his palm was like a vortex, quickly swallowing the power of Kurosaki Ichigo. The power of Quincy, the power of death, the power of emptiness. 3 kinds of powers exist in Kurosaki Ichigo's body at the same time, and the 3 kinds of powers are mixed, and a new power is born. And this power is being absorbed by Yuhabak. Ah! Kurosaki Ichigo let out a painful cry, which felt as if he was pulling away from his soul. However, at this moment, Yuhabak's chest was suddenly pierced by a thorn. PFF'd. This thorn is not pierced from behind, but born directly from its body. 7. After it pierced Yuhabak's chest, it immediately began to work, with strands of white bandages, frantically rolling the hole, completely wrapping Yuhabak, and then like a black hole, to completely seal Yuhabak. This is a ghost road specially prepared for you. On the ruins not far away, Urahara Kazuki picked up his hat, patted the dust, and put it on. From the moment Kurosaki Ichigo regained his strength and gave birth to the power of the Quincy, I knew about it was you who made the ghost. So you deliberately infiltrated a ghost path in his body, and you absorbed his power. This ghost path easily entered your body. Now seal it. A pause, he shouted. 96 Beijing fire racks are sealed off. Boom. Another thorn came out, and Yuhabak's hands, chest, and head were all wrapped in bandages, and the whole person was quickly twisted and sealed. This ghost way is very special. The stronger the seal object, the stronger the seal. It's over, haha. Urahara Kazuki leaned on a cane and said lightly. However, only halfway through his words, a laughter sounded. Do you think I don't know? Yuhabak's eyes mocked, and he whispered in his mouth, I give myself freedom. Boom. As soon as the words fell, Urahara Kazuki's well-prepared powerful seal of ghosts fell apart in an instant, and was directly interfered by Yuhabak's absolute power and shattered. I saw the white bandages disappear, the spikes shattered, and everything returned to peace. What? Urahara Kazuki's eyes widened with a look of disbelief. Mortal knowledge. Yuhabak said disdainfully. I know everything about the future. All your preparations are just performing a play whose script has already been released. Unfortunately, the ending of the play is a tragedy. Between the words, he stretched out a finger. This pointed out, and a dark arrow was shot out in an instant. The arrow pierced through the space, breaking Kazuki Urahara's heart in an instant. Puff. With a groan, Urahara Kazuki's expression froze. He clutched his chest, staggered a few steps, and finally fell to the ground with a bang. This power, Spirit King. He murmured twice and slowly closed his eyes. Mr. Urahara, Kurosaki Ichigo paled in shock. Go on, my son. Yuhabak said with a low smile. I only absorbed half of it. Your power has already brought me close to the Spirit King. You are the perfect material, Ichigo. Saying that, he reached out his hand suddenly and grabbed the opponent's neck. The next moment, Kurosaki Ichigo's consciousness quickly became chaotic, and his strength rapidly weakened until he fell into an ordinary soul. He has even disappeared with his own Death Tyrant outfit. All were usurped by Yuhabak. Ha ha ha, perfect power. Weakened by opening my eyes too early, now I'm back at my peak. Yohabok couldn't stop laughing. Instant coax black cat fighting girl. Suddenly, from the other side, a half-human, half-beast shadow approached rapidly. The figure fell on all fours, with cat ears and cat tails, and a manic reiatsu was entangled all over his body. It is the Knight of Sifeng-yuan. In the form of the black cat fighting concubine, Sifeng-yuan Yei's speed is extremely fast, like a flash of electric light, appearing at the side of Yohabok in an instant. Is there another one to die? Seeing this, Yohabok rolled his eyes and slowly extended his 2 fingers. Today, when he deals with the general captain level death god, he can kill one with 1 finger without any effort. Even if Yamamoto Yuanyujai survived, he would not be his single-handed enemy. Seeing that Sifeng-yuan Yei was about to be easily killed, just at this moment, a cold air drifted by. The next moment, Yohabok's movements stopped, and he raised his eyes to look forward. Only dozens of meters away, Sifeng-yuan Yei was caught by a man who was as elegant as a worldly fairy. Dream. Snow Saint Vivi Isho said, "This is not good, this is my pet, do you want to die against my waiting pet?" Yohabok. Chapter-561-strong interference. Do you want to die on my waiting pet? Yohabok. Snow Saint Vivi Isho captured Sifeng-yuan Yei back. Being caught by him, Sifeng-yuan Yei didn't resist, but rubbed his head against Zusheng's chest, as if she had really turned into a cat. Seeing this, Yohabok's expression turned cold, he snorted, and without saying anything, he turned around and left. He still doesn't dare to do anything to the dream, and when he absorbs the Spirit King, he will settle accounts after the autumn. Watching the other party disappear, Shui Sheng shook his head, patted Sifeng-yuan Yei's head, and said, "You are too impulsive, if I take a step back, you are already dead." Meow. Can this unfinished move be used casually? Shui Sheng was speechless for a while. The black cat fighting concubine form is an advanced skill of instant coaxing. In this form, Yi's mood is changeable, and his spiritual pressure will also change according to his mood, which can be said to be different from the normal state. Just like now, Sifeng-yuan Yi's IQ has degenerated to the level of a cat. Release. Shui Sheng flexed his fingers and flicked his forehead. Under the pain, Sifeng-yuan Yei finally regained consciousness. The next moment, the thunder and lightning all over his body dissipated, and the cat ears and tail quickly disappeared. Realizing what he had done before, Sifeng-yuan couldn't help frowning. "I'm impulsive. Kazuki." As she said that, she looked at Kazuki Urahara, who fell down, and after a little exploration, her complexion changed slightly. "The breath is gone." "He's not dead," Zusheng said calmly, "it's just a righteous skeleton." Hearing this, Sifeng-yuan watched a little at night, and suddenly heaved a sigh of relief. "Thank you for saving me." He. Shui Sheng chuckled and said, "What's the use of verbal thanks? Take some practical actions." Sifeng-yuan's face turned dark at night. "I won't help you deal with Soul Realm, let's change it." "No need. I need your identity, Sifeng-yuan family, one of the 4 nobles. Soon, this world will change. The world is about to change its owner, and Dream is not interested in taking charge of this world for a long time. The most direct way is to subdue the 4 nobles. Not to mention the situation on Shui Sheng's side, the central area of the Invisible Empire." The shadow of darkness flickered, and then Yohabok walked out of the shadow, and he came to the Spirit King again. "No stopping at all, you are so arrogant." Knowing that he was going to absorb the power, the Spirit King did nothing, but waited here. This arrogant attitude made Yohabok very unhappy. "Has it recovered to its peak?" The Spirit King said calmly. "Then, it's time to end." Saying that, he stretched out his right hand and took it towards Yohabok from a distance. "Stay still." As soon as the voice fell, in an instant, Yohabok's heart stopped beating, all his cells fell into an absolute static state, and all life activities were frozen in this moment. Seeing this, Qinyang said in surprise, "This trick is a bit powerful, and it can actually work on people. It's a bit like a fixing one. However, Audiobook is omniscient and omnipotent. I have seen it once, and it is useless. As if confirming his words, the frozen Audiobook only lasted for half a second before regaining his mobility. Multiple dark arrows. With a loud shout, Audiobook's power is displayed wildly. Hundreds of arrows appeared above his head, turning into a rain of arrows and shooting wildly towards the Spirit King. HMPH, I'm afraid you have just woken up now, your strength is too weak. Between the words, with a wave of his right hand, a blade of darkness suddenly condensed. The next moment, under his feet, the field of shadows opened, like a huge curtain, covering the world. All this was accomplished in a short period of time. It can be said that, absorbing the power of Kurosaki Ichigo, Audiobook not only recovered to the peak, but even surpassed the past. Too weak. The Spirit King was unmoved, just stretched out his left hand. My left hand, in charge of going, is the evolutionary direction of everything. I saw behind him, the atmospheric spirits gathered, and the sacred arrows were born one after another, facing the rain of dark arrows. The two forces collided in the air, and a huge explosion occurred continuously. Boom boom boom. In an instant, two forces of the same quality and the same amount are cancelling each other out. However, in the next moment, Audiobook's shadow domain has fully opened, wrapping the Spirit King in it. In the darkness, Audiobook appeared in front of the Spirit King like a teleportation, and the dark man in his hand suddenly swept away. My eyes can see more of the future. What you see are just fragments. Faced with this sword, the Spirit King did not dodge or evade, and grabbed it with his right hand. In an instant, everything fell silent again. But this stillness was only a moment's effort. Audiobook dropped the blade of darkness and stretched out a finger. What about fragments? Omniscient and omnipotent, not the power to know everything, but the power to change the future. At the end of his finger, the light of darkness shone, then turned into a shock, and shot out suddenly. Puff! The right palm of the Spirit King was pierced, and the power of darkness followed the wound and quickly invaded his body. Your power is mine in the end. My father. The Spirit King's eyes are as calm as water, and in the eyes of the cross star, various future pictures flicker. He didn't pay attention to the injured right hand, but just a thought, a heartbeat, everything returned to this way. What? Audiobook was taken aback. Obviously this scene surpassed his omniscience and omnipotence. I am immortal, the concept of injury, for me, does not exist. The Spirit King said indifferently. He also stretched out a finger and pointed it directly on Audiobook's forehead. Even your power is derived from me. Everything you have is given by me. Now give it back to me. This pointed out, flashing holy white light. In an instant, the realm of shadows was dispelled, as if it were clearing up after a storm, and the sky cast a ray of light that enveloped Audiobook. Audiobook couldn't move, and fell into stillness once again. From the position where he was pointed, his body was like glass, with fine cracks appearing. Ka ka ka. The cracks spread, covering the whole body at once. The next moment, with a bang, his body shattered and turned into crystal dust in the sky. Seeing this, even Chin Yang couldn't help but sigh. Dad beats his son, it's really Dad beats his son. Everything about Audiobook comes from the Spirit King. The Spirit King knows all the abilities of his opponent, but he is omnipotent and omnipotent, but he cannot see the future of the Spirit King. There is only one way for Audiobook to defeat the Spirit King head-on, and that is to chop off the opponent's arms or dig out the opponent's heart, so that the Spirit King weakens and falls to the same level as him. It seems that the Spirit King has won. Dover 0.9 Lumingo chuckled softly. For it's really an interesting result. No. Couldn't help laughing. The Spirit King with a complete body is too strong. Just in case, I added a little more material. As soon as the voice fell, the Spirit King who had just wiped out Audiobook's expression suddenly changed greatly. This is. For the first time, the King Spirit changed his face. He covered his forehead, and the power in his body went berserk. Seeing the top of his head, Huo-ran opened one eye, then another, then the third, the fourth, the fifth. Ha ha ha, Spirit King, your power is mine in the end. From these eyes, Yuhabok's voice came out. Hearing this, King Ling's complexion changed. He turned around suddenly, and looked at Lanyan Wanchi. You did it. He. Wanshan Eisen smiled. Is it magical? Neither omnipotence, nor you can find out, the interference ending of the interference force. Chapter 0569_World Lord. Genshin Eisen interfered in the battle, which neither Yuhabok nor the Spirit King could notice. At this moment, the Spirit King took back the power he had bestowed on Yuhabok, and he should have regained his full strength, but he did not expect that Yuhabok not only did not die, but also merged with himself. On its forehead, to be precise, it is the half of the face above the nose, with 9 eyes growing out, and in each eye, the eyeballs are turning wildly. The Spirit King shouted, and black spiritual pressure poured out of his body. These spiritual pressures were like boiling ink, covering the surface of his body. Puff puff. The surging spiritual power finally completely devoured the Spirit King. Not only did he fail to recover his power, but he was devoured by his own power. This is, Yukitake Shuru murmured in shock. What did you do? He suddenly looked at the fantasy body blue dye. In this regard, Hanshin Lanran said calmly, it's nothing, just interfered with the process of his fusion of his own strength. This is like a scale, I just added an extra weight to one side of the scale. The power of the Spirit King is very powerful, but no matter how powerful it is, it also needs a driver. When the driver collapses, the power will naturally run away. What Wanshan Eisen did was to drop a drop of ink into a clear water glass. In the blink of an eye, the entire glass of water was dyed black. Is he going to explode? Doflamingo said solemnly. This guy is the root of the world, right? If he explodes, the whole world will collapse. He. Qinyang chuckled and walked out. I've been a spectator for a long time, it's time to end everything. Between the words, he walked in the air and came not far in front of the Spirit King. At this moment, the spiritual power covering the surface of the Spirit King finally stagnated. His appearance has undergone great changes, his entire body has turned black, and his forehead is covered with 9 eyes. Each of the 9 eyes rotated clockwise and counterclockwise. After a while, they stopped and locked onto Qinyang in unison. Should I call you Spirit King, or Yuhabok? Qinyang said softly, or, is it a combination of the two? Ha ha ha. Spirit King let out a low laugh, hoarse, like a ghost. I want to thank you all. It wasn't because of you who interfered in the battle, and I wouldn't have been able to take the Spirit King's body so easily. Looks like you are Yuhabok. Qinyang nodded, not too surprised. Compared with Yuhabok's devouring the Spirit King and gaining the power of the Spirit King, it is obviously more difficult for the Spirit King to take back Yuhabok's power and restore the peak. Therefore, in terms of the result of the interference, Qinyang prefers the former, and the fact is as he expected, there is no accident. Phantom, scan. Scanning is over. Fantasy Jean replied sternly. Discover the origin of the world, and the orientation is straight ahead. The origin is complete and can be swallowed. Very good. Qinyang nodded with satisfaction. Since that's the case, let's get started. Pung. While he was scanning, Yuhabok was getting used to the new power. His 9 eyes looked around, and a wild smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. This is the most powerful force. He ignored Qinyang's existence and stretched out his hand. Immediately, the inside of the Spirit King floating above the sky collapsed suddenly. The next moment, above the surface, the shattered invisible empire is rapidly recovering. As long as I want, I can build a new world at any time. I am a new Spirit King. Yuhabok laughed and said, this is the power to master the world. Come on, the holy land of the new world. He roared and raised his hands. In an instant, a magnificent city rose from the ground. This huge city is comparable to the entire Saraiti. It is like an inverted triangle in one corner, and at the top is a dark castle. Yuhabak flew away and hit the top of the castle in the blink of an eye. He stood on a platform and looked down at the entire Soul Realm. The northwest Liuhun Street, outside the Liuhun Street, is a wider area. This is the Soul Realm. Perfect power. Ha ha ha, he couldn't stop laughing. I am the king of the new world. This city is named True World City, and I, the sun and the moon will shine together, forever. Looking at this scene from a distance, Chinyang couldn't help but beso, and immediately raised his hand. As soon as I gained power, I couldn't wait to announce that I can understand your mood, but, this world, let's turn it into my nourishment. Illusory world is coming. Boom boom boom. All of a sudden, the sky in the Soul Realm that had calmed down suddenly shattered at this moment. The whole sky, like a huge mirror, has a force that bombards it on the other side of the mirror. Boom. In a corner of the sky, the space shattered, revealing the face of that power. It was another world, a more complete, perfect world. What? Yuhabak's complexion changed, and his 9 eyes stared at the sky. What is this? This is the first time I've used it, even I've seen it for the first time. Yuhabak, you're lucky. Chinyang waved his hand, and suddenly, the speed of the coming of the illusory world suddenly increased. Illusory world suppression. Boom. There was a huge roar in the sky, and no one could hear where the roar came from. But with the sound of this loud noise, the entire corpse soul world is falling apart, as if the world is collapsing. In the vast Lusol Street area, all buildings are rising, violating the law of gravity. The earth is shattering and cracking, like farmland that has been dry for 10 years. The atmosphere trembled, the spirits surged, lightning storms intertwined, and the water dragon mirror appeared strangely. This world-destroying scene made everyone involved in this war feel frightened. This is not a battle between two extremely powerful masters, but a collision between two worlds. There are no moves, no skills, just the collision of the world, and the annihilation of the weak. Impossible. Yuhabak was stunned, and his body was also collapsing. You are actually the master of the world. After he became the Spirit King, 460 could understand the meaning of this scene. This is Emperor Qin controlling his own world and suppressing his world. The newly born, real-world city, collapsed in an instant under the collision of the two worlds. The city buildings of Pengpo were quickly annihilating at a speed visible to the naked eye. Unlike your second generation, I am the first generation. Chinyang walked away, slowly approaching Yuhabak. Every time he took a step, the world of the god of death collapsed, and Yuhabak weakened. Seeing that you can still maintain your form, then I will add more fire. Turning his hand, a black spear appeared in Chinyang's right palm. The origin of your world, turn it into the nourishment of the illusion world. Heaven's Chong Spear. Whoosh. The black spear looks like the spear of destruction. It flew out of Chinyang's hands, shattered the space, and headed straight for Yuhabak. What is omnipotent and omnipotent? The right hand is still, the left hand is going. In the face of the power of the collapsed world, everything is as pale as paper. Boom. With a flash of black light, Yuhabak was pierced through his forehead with a spear. No, this is my world. Yuhabak's eyes widened, his 9 eyes were bloodshot, and he roared wildly. His body was already covered with cracks, and the moment the Chong spear of the sky saw it, the whole person collapsed. Boom. And with his collapse, the world of the god of death is also unable to stop the invasion of the illusion world. The sky, in an instant, became the sky of the fantasy world. Chapter 0570 The three realms belong together. The sky of the soul realm disappeared, replaced by a vision of an illusion. Different from the world-destroying scene above the earth, what appears above the sky is a peaceful world. In that world where birds and flowers are fragrant, like a paradise, there is a suspended tower. This tower was built by Chinyang with the power of the phantom god, and it is the base camp of dreams. At this moment, the tower body emits 1,000 radiance, illuminating everything in the world. What the hell is this? Spirit King, no, is Yhwach dead? Yhwach merged with the Spirit King, and his death means that the world will collapse. All over the Invisible Empire, on both sides of the battle, everyone looked up at the sky and looked at Qin Yang above the sky. Whether it is the soul world, the void circle, or the present world, they are all in the rhythm of collapse. In the present world, around the island of Japan, the earth is splitting and the ocean is drying up. In the virtual circle, the desertification has become more and more serious, and the virtual night palace, which was broken the day before, is now shaking more and more. In the soul world, all kinds of spiritual subspaces are collapsing, and the spiritual subspaces that build everything are running wild. The three worlds, like three-body galaxies in motion, are approaching each other and are about to collide. It's like three glass balls, in a state of faster and faster acceleration, will eventually collide with each other and then annihilate each other. The world, it's over. In a corner, Urahara Kazuki looked up at the sky and murmured. At this moment, Qin Yang above the sky said loudly, I am Emperor Qin, the Lord of Dreams, the God of Illusions. Here, use the illusion world to fuse this world, and maintain this world indestructible. Illusory world fusion. Quote. Puff. A ray of fire was born in the sky, and then the fire quickly spread in all directions. This flame, like an adhesive, imprints the sky of the illusion world directly on this world, merging the two worlds. This is not the first time Qin Yang has done this kind of thing. He is more familiar with it than the last time, so it is more efficient. Wherever its flames passed, the collapse of soul world began to stop, and it quickly stabilized. At the same time, after Yhwach's self-destruction, the scattered world origin was quickly absorbed by Qin Yang. I saw a holy brilliance covering Qin Yang. The fusion of the world, Doflamingo said with a low smile, for another world, falling into our hands. As a full member of Dream, it should be considered a core member now. He saw that the world of the god of death was about to be merged, and he couldn't help but feel a sense of sympathy. Kai J%. When the pirate world merged, the scene that swept the whole world is still vivid in my mind. Aryin. At the entrance of the Spirit King Amadasanda above the sky, Hasward looked at this scene calmly. Beside him, Busby said in a deep voice, you knew it would turn out like this. Haswald nodded without any concealment. 3 days ago, when His Majesty was asleep, I saw some future fragments with His Majesty. No, I saw some future fragments with the omnipotence and omnipotence of Yhwach. He saw the clip of the ending and knew that Yhwach would die, so after this war started, from beginning to end, he didn't do it. Even when Yhwach asked him to stop Emperor Qin, he deliberately slowed down the pace without any actual action. Yhwach died. All of this, Yhwach did not know at all, because when he woke up, the future had been disturbed by the illusion of blue dye, but he failed to predict his own demise. Hearing this, Busby sighed and said, although we didn't kill it with our own hands, we joined the Invisible Empire and finally achieved the most fundamental purpose. We have avenged our hometown. Yes, vengeance has been paid. Hasward murmured. Everyone stared blankly at the sky, the god of death, the Quincy, the human, the mask, even the broken face, and the souls and so on. The flames that swept the sky were extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, they had disappeared into the sky. Then, the reality and the imaginary circle also appeared in this scene. Flames are born above the sky, and wherever the flames pass, the sky of the illusory world is reflected, as if the kingdom of God is coming. This process lasted for half an hour. When the last ray of flame disappeared, Qin Yang also swallowed the last trace of the source. At this moment, he became the new Spirit King. No, to be precise, it wasn't that he became the Spirit King, but the illusory realm became a new generation of Spirit King. Illusory world has grown by another point. Qin Yang closed his eyes and sensed the state of the illusion world, it's more solid. A bridge has been built between the fantasy world and the world of death, and the world of death has become another lower world. It is like the relationship between the human world and the fairy world in Shenxia novels. Thinking of this, Qin took a deep breath and opened his mouth slowly. His voice spread all over the world, the entire soul realm, the world, the virtual circle, and even hell. I am Emperor Qin. From today onwards, I will become the master of this world, the spiritual king of all living beings, immortal and immortal, and live together with this world. I am the Phantom God, the Lord of Dreams, the God of the Phantom World, everywhere, everywhere. Qin is much calmer than when Yuhabak became the Spirit King and couldn't wait to build his own real-world city. He first informed all beings in the world, and then he transformed the world slowly and slowly. I reformed the world and established a peace system. Between the words, Qin waved his hand. In an instant, the real-world city disappeared, and Xiaorenge, who was hidden in another spiritual subspace, was revealed. The soul-covering mask appeared again, and at the same time, the Spirit King Palace was completely transformed into the world's spirit sun and underwent reconstruction. I saw the spiritual child in the atmosphere, turned into a torrent, quickly condensed, and a sacred temple was quickly born. The hall is magnificent, suspended in the sky, like a tower of gods. This was built to imitate the base camp of the illusion world to replace the Lingwang Palace. Retain the system of the 13th team of the Guardian, cancel the establishment of the Zero Division, cancel the Lingwang Palace, cancel the Zero Family Hall, and instead, set up a Dream Hall. Qin announced lightly, everything in the hall is based on peace. 5 halls are set up, which are composed of 5 halls, namely, Karatsu Uno, Sosuke Aizen, Yaiki Sefenjin, Doflamingo, and Nelly Lu. In charge. Mao Zhawali was the representative of the death god. As the sword attendant beside him, he had to give him some face after serving tea and pouring water for so long. And Saifeng Yuanyei was the representative of the nobles, and she had to rely on her to win over the nobles to avoid trouble. Nelly L is the representative of the broken face, and for the sake of world peace, the broken face must also set up a seat. As for Aizen Sosuke, this guy is so-so in terms of combat power, and now he is just a Dream Reserve member. First give him the position of the Palace Master, and then investigate for a while. As for the last Doflamingo, it is an ombudsman-like existence, representing the authority of dreams. So far, the 3 realms belong together. The slogan that was originally called out by the dream was finally achieved today. Chapter 0571 _ Peace-Loving Organization, End of Volume 2. Third update _ Since many people want to watch fairy tale, let's write fairy tale first. The original book is almost over, so it's time to write about it. Originally, I planned to write Fight Breaking the Heavens and write Xiaozuner as the heroine, but after thinking about it again and again, I should put it aside first. Philo does not allow colleagues who write reading articles. If you insist on writing, there are some restrictions. Close black lens bracket. Soul World, somewhere in Nanliu Soul Street. Ichimaru Jin stared at the sky and said nothing for a long time. He initially thought that Aizen was dead, but now it seems that he did not die, but also joined the dream. It's really unpredictable. He smiled, jumped off the roof, and walked away slowly. Aizen is now stronger than when he merged with the collapsed Jade. It is more difficult for him to take revenge. Therefore, the only way is to cultivate. As for how long it will take, Ichimaru Yin has not thought about it, nor does he want to think about it. With the death of Yohabak, the fantasy world merged with the world of the god of death, and the battle finally ended. There is no winner, whether it is Quincy or death, they are just pawns. If I have to say, the dream is the big winner, they have gained control of a world. After January, the world has returned to peace. In the present world, the impact is very small, and it is not a big problem. In order to maintain stability, Qin even repaired the empty town and built the city overnight. This kind of miracle shocked mortals 823 times. Kurosaki Ichigo lost his strength and returned to an ordinary life, continuing to go to school and study. Ishida Yulong met some of the surviving Quincy masters such as Hasward. At the moment of Yohabak's death, the two sides accepted each other, and the bloodline of the Quincy family was preserved. Kazuki Urahara continues to run his Urahara store and enjoys leisure every day. And the virtual circle, the change is bigger. The Void Knight Palace changed its owner, and Ulquiorra became the king of the new generation of Void Knight Palace. Of course, this is the meaning of the illusion of Aizen. While handing this position to Ulquiorra, he also handed the other party a task. That is to keep the world stable. As for the 10 blades, I don't know how many generations have changed before and after. The current 10 blades have been cleaned again, but because there is no suitable candidate, the current 10-blade core is much weaker than before. Of course, because Nelialu became the master of the palace, there would be no war between the Soul Society and the Void Circle. Compared with the virtual circle and the present world, the changes in the soul world are the biggest. On the side of Jing Lingting, Yamamoto Yuanyujai died, and Qinyang did not resurrect him because he could not be resurrected. He was killed by Yuhabak, and he didn't even leave a trace of his soul. Unless the time and space were reversed, no one could save him. Therefore, the new commander-in-chief was appointed, and it was Jingle Chunchui. Not only that, because of the departure of the captain of the 5th Division, the King of Knights, the captain's position was a little free, and the masked armies Hirako Mako and others returned to the Soul World. However, to say that the biggest change is the Spirit King Palace. Of course, now it is not called the Palace of the King of Spirits, but should be called the Palace of Dreams. The hall floats at an altitude of 1,000 meters, standing in the Saranje. You can see a little mark when you look up. Now, after a month, the new generation of Spirit King Qinyang has finally summoned 5 hall masters. Aizen Soyusuke, Sefenjin Yoichi, Nelly L, Uno Hanari, and Doflamingo. The 5 entered the hall and came to an open-air platform. The platform is the size of a football field, with a blue sky overhead. On the platform, there are stone pillars, and above the stone pillars are one dream member after another. The whole body of each member is covered with mist, and no one can see the specific face clearly, only a glimpse of the outline. Marked number 20 is the phantom of a giant dragon. You are here. Yes, Lord Deathwing. Doflamingo immediately knelt down on one knee and said respectfully. He faintly felt that he was going to say something later. Deathwing swallowed clouds and mist, and said, after a month's correction, this world is on the right track, and I will retire when I succeed. Are you going to leave again? Doflamingo hurriedly asked, conquering the next world. You talk so much nonsense. Deathwing curled his lips. I won't take you, your level is low, slowly get over your seniority. All 5 of you. At this time, on the stone pillar marked number 18, a drifting phantom came out with bursts of cold air. Not much nonsense. Siphon Yuan Night 1. Shui Sheng said softly, although I have been calling you a pet, I have no ill intentions. This time you represent the 4 great nobles, and you have done a good job of keeping the Soul Society from chaos. Hearing this, Siphon Courtyard couldn't help crying and laughing. Yes, Lord Zusheng. Nello. At this time, above the number 10 stone pillar, Vivi Isho, a phantom body blue-dyed, said, the peace between the virtual circle and the soul world depends on you. Yes, Aizen-sama. Nelly L nodded heavily. As for the other me. Nianthan Aizen turned his eyes, looked at the god of death, and said with a smile, if you want to get out of this well, you have to keep working hard. If you can get out of this world, I may tell you my true origin at that time. Quote. Hearing this, Aizen Suo Yusuke's eyes flashed, but he didn't speak. The origin of the dream is clear, but the phantom god Aizen is still a mystery. Finally, on the central stone pillar, above the number 0 stone pillar, Qinyang spoke lightly and said, Lai, since you are my sword attendant, I will give you a chance to choose. A pause, he said, immediately, I will leave this world and go to the next place. If you want to follow, I can approve you. Lord Qin Emperor. Mao Shawali Vivi bowed and said, I want to stay here and guard the Hall of Fantasy for you. Really? Qinyang nodded and Isho said, then, just stay here. Speaking, he swept over the 5 people and said, "If there is something wrong, just call my name. No matter how many worlds are separated, I can come to the clone. Then, goodbye." Between the words, he got up from the throne, then waved his hand, summoning the illusion world to come. The next moment, 19 rays of light were projected in the sky, and 19 dream members disappeared immediately. Huh. Watching Emperor Qin and others leave, Doflamingo was stunned, but saw a figure above the stone pillar. Pillar 5. King of Knights laughed softly and said, "I didn't leave. 5, is it a surprise?" He didn't leave, of course, not to give others a little surprise, but just for a 5-star, or even a 6-star. This world is very suitable for the Night King's phantom body, so let's stay and continue to practice. Anyway, for Qin Yang, it was similar to hanging up offline. Fortunately, he stayed. The 5 looked at each other. Aizen said, "Are they really going to fight in other worlds?" No, expedition is not the right word. The King of Knights glanced at the sky where the illusion world disappeared and said with a smile, "We are bringing peace, we said it, we are a peace-loving organization." Volume 3 Fairy Tale. Chapter 0572-Fairy Tale. Time and Space Turbulence. A golden fish cruising outside the world. This is one of the new worlds discovered by Qin Yang. Its shape is very round, like a glass ball, showing black and white color, half black and half white, and the center is chaotic. The appearance of various worlds is really strange. Yuer spit out human words, and then his body changed, turning into the appearance of Qin Yang's body. Huan, can the invasion of this world be successful with the long river of time and space? Qin Yang asked in his heart. No success. Fantasy Jean said. This, black and white world, is not as good as the previous, 8-ball world, but it is also very stable and solid. At present, Qin Yang knows where the 4 worlds are. The world of pirates, the world of death, the world of 8 balls, and the black and white world in front of you. After leaving the world of Death God, Qin Yang tried to invade the world of 8 balls, but failed. The defense of that world was very strong, and it was difficult to invade even the long river of time and space. After realizing this, Qin Yang had no choice but to choose the newly found black and white world, but now it seems that the black and white world is not easy to invade. It seems that the combat power in this world is not weak. Qin Yang shook his head and said, "Yes, you should pay more attention in the future. The invasion method of the long river of time and space, even the aborigines in this world, can find some clues, not to mention the will of the world. If it exists, it will definitely cause a backlash." The will of the world. Take the metaphor of the fairy world in the world of novels, that is, the way of heaven. Fantasy Jean said, "However, in this black and white world, there should be no heaven, so don't worry. Although the invasion method of the long river of time and space is not secure, but now, after integrating the world of death, the way of invasion of the illusion world can already be done." Illusory world invasion. Qin Yang was stunned for a moment, then pondered for a while, and said, "With the power of the illusory world, forcibly descend into this world." "Yes, just tearing open a passage. Now you can do it. You can try. Then try." Nodding, Qin Yang immediately summoned the illusion world to descend. Suddenly, in the turbulent flow of time and space, a blurry scene emerged, which was an illusion. The illusion world has no absolute form. Unlike other worlds, it has a general appearance. The next moment, Qin Yang manipulated the illusion world and turned it into a long spear. Then he attached himself to the long spear and attacked the world of black and white suddenly. Boom! This is a world full of magic. In this world, people who have magic power and can use magic are called magicians. The sorcerer absorbs the magic particles in the atmosphere, cultivates them, and uses various powerful magics according to their own attributes. In this world, magic is very prosperous and has become a part of people's lives. But now, in the whole world, at a certain moment, the atmosphere is shaking, covering the whole world, whether it is mountain peaks, snow, cliffs, oceans, continents, everything in nature has undergone a slight change. A powerful magician can clearly feel that, within a certain period of time, the magic particles in the entire world experience an instant weakening. But in just an instant, this weakness disappeared, and everything returned to calm. However, no one knew that under this momentary change, an outsider had entered this world. This is a snow-capped peak, covered with snow all year round, at a very high altitude and surrounded by clouds and mists. On the mountainside of Shifeng, the space rippling like water waves, and then a figure gradually solidified from illusory. Huh. Qin Yang took a deep breath and sighed. New world, the atmosphere is full of a special power. The phantom invasion was successful, but there was a little problem. Using the illusion world as a gun, piercing the world and tearing a hole. Although it was successful, the illusion world itself was traumatized and needed to be restored. Of course, this is not a big problem. With the support of Pirate World and Death God World, this small problem will automatically recover in a day or two. Then, first, scan. Thinking of this, Qin Yang immediately ordered, first determine whether the mysterious power exists. Scanning is over. Within a kilometer radius, in order to discover mysterious power Fantasy Gene's reply. Qin Yangtong found an abnormality, and he suddenly raised his head and looked at the sky. In the mist, a dark figure loomed. Is that a dragon? Qin Yang Vivi narrowed his eyes. His sight penetrated the distance of thousands of meters, and penetrated the clouds and mist, barely able to see the figure above the sky. It's the black dragon. The black dragon has black dragon scales all over its body and has a special pattern, which is similar to the general Western dragon that Qin Yang knows. Huh. Suddenly, Qin Yang let out a small yawn and turned his eyes to look somewhere under Shifeng. It can be seen that a human is walking on the snow. Judging from his appearance and clothing, he is a male and is over 30 years old. This person is going to die. Qin Yang raised his eyebrows and commented secretly, the black dragon in the sky is going for this guy. He looked at it with great interest, and was not at all worried about being discovered unless he took the initiative to expose it. And at this moment, the black dragon in the sky penetrated the clouds and swooped down towards the one. Under the fanning of its huge wings, a blizzard was set off. The man had a big orange back and was wearing a dark green windbreaker. He felt the wind and snow were raging, and immediately raised his head to stare. At a glance, his pupils shrank suddenly. Impossible. Dragon King, the black dragon Analakia. Man's expression was shocked, and he said, why are you here? He didn't even have time to think about it. The black dragon's speed was extremely fast, and the blink of an eye was already overhead. It opened its huge mouth and let out a shocking dragon roar. The dragon roar resounded, and an avalanche occurred on the entire mountain. At the same time, Qin Yang Vivi was startled. Black dragon, Akunorokia here is, fairy tale. In the world of fairy tale, the black dragon Akunorokia is the top fighting force, possessing the power to destroy the world. Interesting, the dragon of destruction. Qin Yang grinned and suddenly took a step forward, opening his mouth to let out a dragon roar. What a coincidence, Deathwing is also the dragon that destroys the world. Roar. The dragon roar resounded, and a huge coercion instantly enveloped the world. The next moment, Qin Yang's body suddenly shone with white light, and then a dark shadow recoiled out of the sky. Deathwing's wings spread wide, hovering in the sky. Another dragon. Man was inexplicably shocked. What the hell is going on? Although I knew that the 100-year mission would not be completed so easily, two dragons suddenly appeared at the place where the mission was carried out. The appearance of Deathwing made Hailong startled. It ignored the small reptile of the man, and turned its hostility and murderous intent on Qin Yang. The next moment, it opened its huge mouth and slammed out a dragon's breath. The roar of the black dragon. Chapter 0573_Fleeing Black Dragon. The roar of the black dragon. The black dragon Akunorokia opened his mouth and roared, breathing out the dragon's breath. A huge amount of dark energy poured towards Qin Yang in an instant. You didn't even say hello, just launched an attack. Qin Yang is very calm. Since the other party has no intention of communicating, let's fight first. He is curious about the level of the world's peak combat power. Genko Meteor. Thinking of this, Qin Yang controlled Deathwing and opened his mouth to gather strength. The giant dragon's soul reflected the phantoms of the dragons in the sky, and the huge power in the body turned into a white dragon ball in the mouth, and suddenly sprayed out. One black and one white, the two forces collided in the air, and a shocking explosion occurred in an instant. Boom! The huge explosion power easily caused a hurricane, and the snow on the entire snow peak was blown away in an instant, the trees were uprooted, and the boulders were smashed by the wind and waves. The orange-haired man below immediately slumped down and lay on the ground to avoid this terrifying scene. Dragon Battle. He looked up at the two sides who exchanged fire in the sky, without blinking, for fear of missing a moment. That's all for the black dragon. What happened to the other dragon? The name of the black dragon is extremely loud, and its power is deeply rooted in the hearts of the people, but the power shown by Deathwing is not inferior at all, and even to a certain extent, it is slightly stronger. But that's not magic. The man's expression was shaken, and he stared at him. No, I can't be so sure. Maybe it's the great wizard of the abyss who has reached the abyss. Legend has it that at the end of magic, there is a realm called the abyss. Mages who set foot in the abyss can use magic of any attribute and know the root of all magic power. Men can't see through the power used by Deathwing, or even feel the breath of magic. Therefore, they can only infer that the opponent is an abyss-level dragon, equal to the black dragon. While he was thinking, above the sky, the two dragons immediately approached each other after fighting with the dragon's breath. The wings of Deathwing shook, and instantly set off a blazing flame. The fiery flame quickly turned into a huge fireball and crushed it towards the black dragon. Seeing this, the black dragon did not retreat but advanced, and directly resisted with his body. The pitch-black dragon's scales touched the flame and immediately extinguished it. The big fireball shattered. After the black dragon got close, a dragon claw suddenly snapped. Does the flames have no effect on his dragon scales? No, he is a black dragon. The magic is darkness, and the flames should have been diverted by him. Qin Yang calmly analyzed the ability of the other party. The previous dragon breaths were just testing each other, and he couldn't see much detail, but it was easy to see the clue in the scene of the body resisting the big fireball. It's interesting. Thinking of this, Qin Yang immediately walked away to meet the opponent's claws. Boom. Degree. The dragon claws of the two giant dragons are holding each other, as if they are wrestling. Little contact. Qin Yang found that the opponent's strength was also very strong, and his brute force was no weaker than Deathwing. Not only that, but above the opponent's dragon claws, there is also Chanrao's dark power, and under the collision, this magic power begins to invade itself. Huh! With a light snort, Qin Yang immediately let out a dragon roar, hitting his head directly on the opponent's chin. With a bang, the black dragon escaped in pain, and then roared. He still didn't mean to communicate, but his murderous aura became heavier. I saw a peculiar pattern shining brightly between its wings, and with the sound of the dragon's roar, faint black light began to radiate in all directions. This is a 360-degree attack with no dead ends, a full-scale, large-area move. I saw that under the black light, the earth was dry, the trees were aging, and even the air became extremely weak, and a dark and unpleasant aura spread here. The man below was shocked, and immediately punched the ground. The next moment, the ground cracked and shattered. Without saying a word, he quickly buried himself under the soil. With his movements, the black light shone down, and the surface was immediately dyed a layer of charred black. It's dangerous. I instinctively feel the danger, and my subconscious behavior saved my life. The man's heart is lingering. If this is illuminated by black light, he is afraid that he will be severely injured. Of course, these black lights didn't come at him, but only by you Bobo. That dragon. The man hurriedly raised his head and looked at the sky from between the gaps in the clods. I saw that the space around Deathwing was distorted, as if it had been stripped away from this world. All the black light of the black dragon was distorted, completely bypassing Deathwing's body. Void twist. Qinyang let out a low laugh. It seems that you are very angry, but you are not strong enough to deal with me. Hearing this, Hailong's eyes were cloudy, staring at Qinyang, and he said for the first time, "Who are you?" "My name is Deathwing." Qinyang said loudly. "Of course, in your words, you can call me a Dragon of Destruction, the Dragon of Destruction." Hearing this, Hailong snorted coldly and said no more. He launched the attack again. This time, he climbed high, and after a circle at high altitude, he suddenly dived down. At the same time, the whole body was covered with dark aura, and finally the entire body turned into a huge dark celestial body. Knowing that I can twist the void, so choose to use my body to break this defense. Qinyang raised his eyebrows, but was surprised by the judgment of the other party, although there is nothing serious, but naive. Between the words, he looked up to the sky and chanted the dragon. The next moment, in the sky behind him, the phantoms of dragons immediately appeared. Of giant dragons, each with its teeth and claws, and it is extremely powerful. I am the king of the black dragon. The soul of the giant dragon. As soon as the voice fell, Deathwing grabbed his right claw and waved it away. In an instant, this claw shattered the space, and even though it was 100 meters away, it still grabbed the middle black dragon. Roar! The black dragon cried out in pain. The ball of darkness that wrapped him was scratched, and his right arm was torn apart by a single blow, blood flowing. Destroyed dragon, I remember you. Leaving a deep cold speech, a Kunorokia bit his severed arm, turned into a dark streamer, and quickly escaped. It ran away. Rao was Qinyang, and couldn't help but startled. I am really timid. The two sides were just testing each other, and they didn't reach the point of life and death. As a result, the black dragon was only slightly injured and fled without saying a word. This is not to say that Deathwing is definitely stronger than Black Dragon, but that Black Dragon suffered a big loss because he did not know Deathwing's ability. Thinking of this, Qinyang lacked interest, so he did not choose to chase, but turned his eyes and looked at the earth below. Somewhere on the mountainside, the orange-haired man hid in a mud puddle. Before he could recover from the ending of the Black Dragon's escape, the wings of death had suddenly descended. Boom! The earth trembled, and then a voice was heard. "What's your name, human?" Hearing this, the man's body shook, and after a while, he climbed out of the mud pit. I will take the initiative to talk to humans. It is rare for dragons like you. Hello, powerful giant dragon. My name is Gildas, and I am the Wizard of Fairy Tale. Chapter 0574_Mystical Power from Magic. The third update. There was a problem with the automatic update, and it was not uploaded, ORZ. Kildeth. Qinyang was stunned and said, "No wonder it looks familiar." Huh, familiar. Gildas was stunned and looked at each other suspiciously. Does this dragon know him? You look similar to an acquaintance of mine, otherwise I wouldn't be interested in saving you. Qinyang fudged casually. The reason why he stood up was not to save Gildas, but to try, what a level of peak warfare in this world. Now it seems that it is probably equivalent to a big master. As for who Gildas looks like, this is not a lie, and there is a slight similarity with the red-haired Shanks, he knows. Thinking of this, Qinyang thought about it, and immediately secretly said in his heart, "Huan, scan him again, just scan him." Understood. Scanning ended. Mysterious power found. Quantity. Fantasy Jean suddenly paused, as if stuck, and said after a while, "The mysterious power of the 15th world in this world is rather special." What exactly? It's magic. Fantasy Jean said. In the body of Gildas, there is magic, and that is the mysterious power. Do you want to absorb his magic like the Zanpakuto in the world of Shinigami? No, it's not the same. It's more appropriate to replace it with transcription. Each magician's magic is mostly different, and each kind of magic is a mysterious power. Like the black dragon just now, it is Dragon Slayer Magic Darkness. Infer, it is probably just copying the magic of the magician, and it can form a mysterious power. It is said to be transcribing, but it is similar to absorbing. Qin Yang understood a general idea. So it is, I remember that Gildas's magic is super advanced destruction magic smash. If I copy his magic, will he lose his magic power and become an ordinary person? No, it's just that he won't be able to use his magic power for a period of time. The length of time varies from person to person, ranging from a few hours to a few days. If he becomes an ordinary person, it is not called transcription, but absorbed. Quote. Fantasy gene is hard on words. Qin Yang understood. It makes sense. Since that's the case, then I'll try it. Just thinking about it, Fantasy Gene said again. No, not yet. Since it is a transcription, direct absorption like before is not feasible. It requires the other party to use its own magic, and then we can transcribe it after analyzing it. Really, it's more troublesome than before. Of course, trouble, it doesn't matter. There are countless types of magic in this world. For Qin Yang, that is a very huge mysterious power. Moreover, based on the current acquisition method, Qin Yang has come up with a good idea to transcribe the magic of various mages in a large area. However, let's talk about this later, and first determine the current time and place. Thinking of this, he came back to his senses, looked at Gildas, and asked, how many years is it now? Hearing this, Gildas looked puzzled, but did not dare not answer. 784 years. In 784, the year the plot begins, this situation is similar to that of the world of Reaper. Based on this, Qin Yang felt that if he didn't use some special methods, every time he invaded a new world, it would be basically the same situation. Where is this? Qin Yang asked again. Huh, you don't even know where this place is. Gildas was stunned, always feeling a little weird. Stop talking nonsense, do you want to be eaten by me? This is Lingfang Zonia. Lingfang. Qin Yang raised his eyebrows and said to himself, no wonder the black dragon appeared. Just thinking about it, I heard Gildas say, thank you for saving me, without you, the black dragon would definitely attack me, and judging from the battle just now, I'm afraid I have to pay a lot for it run away. For example, an arm, a leg, etc., can escape from the mouth of the black dragon alive. It is a kind of luck. He. Qin Yang let out a low laugh, and immediately the whole body shone with white light, and the huge dragon body quickly shrank and gradually turned into a human figure. As the top dragon, the king of black dragons, Deathwing certainly possesses the ability to transform human beings. He turned into a black-haired young man with a handsome appearance and a slight stubble on his chin, adding a bit of maturity. Seeing this scene, Gildas's pupils shrank and blurted out, you are human. I'm not human. Qin Yang said calmly. I advise you to leave here as soon as possible. A Kunorokia doesn't appear casually, often because of the aura produced by the massacre, and he came at you from the very beginning. If I didn't wake up because of his breath, you've turned into a corpse now. Having said that, he paused and asked again, I saved your life, you should remember this favor for me. Saying that, he turned and left. Just after taking a step, he turned back and asked, I want to ask you one last question, which direction is the nearest human city? You're not going to devour humans, right? Gildas had a bad premonition. If you talk nonsense again, I think I'll swallow you first. Facing south, along this ridge, keep walking, about 100 kilometers away, there is a human city. Gildas said quickly. As soon as he finished speaking, he saw that Deathwing had gone far. Watching the other party disappear into the snow, Gildas breathed a sigh of relief. He was shocked to find that he was already in a cold sweat. The terrifying dragon, but it doesn't seem to have much hostility to humans. Gildas's eyes flashed, and he whispered, the dragon really still exists, and I saw to at once today. The 100-year mission is really not a joke. It seems that I can only stop here. If I continue to investigate, it is no longer a field that I can relate to. After 3 years, he took on a 100-year mission in the guild, followed the clues from all sides, and finally came to Lingfeng Zuania. Let's go back first. Black Dragon Analogia, Destruction Dragon Deathwing. These information, Natsu's kid, should be very interesting. Not to mention that Gildas chose to retreat wisely. On the other hand, Qinyang followed the direction pointed by the other party and kept going south. He was not in a hurry. When he first came to this world, he naturally wanted to feel the scenery of this world. It was not until sunset that at his speed, he was able to find a human city. There are sorcerers in this world, and among the sorcerers, in order to facilitate their work, they have formed the Sorcerers Guild, the Fairy Tale, the Lady of Snake Scales, the Blue Pegasus, the Saber-Toothed Tiger, and the Eye of a Mermaid. Qinyang walked on the streets of the human city. He grinned and whispered, "In short, I have to create a guild in the name of fantasy." Chapter 0575-Invasion of the Magic Council. If you want to create a guild, you must first have a stronghold, which is where the headquarters is. Moreover, according to their nature, the Sorcerers Guild is divided into 2 types, the regular guild and the dark guild. From the name, it can be easily judged that the former is legal, and the latter is just the word, dark, which represents its nature. With a dreamy style of behavior, it is obviously closer to the dark guild. As for the stronghold, this is a problem. I don't have the currency of this world in my hands. It seems that I can only put it away first. Qinyang walked on the streets of the city, observing the customs of this world, and thinking about the establishment of the guild in his heart. However, money is not a problem, it is easy to solve. The name of dream has to be spread first. Thinking of this, Qinyang swept across the pedestrians on the street, then locked on a target and walked over quickly. "My friend, I want to ask you something." Qinyang stopped a young man and said hello. The man in his early 20s, with blonde hair, was suddenly stopped from his way, and he couldn't help but be surprised. "What's the matter?" "Are you a wizard?" Qinyang said. He can see that the other party has magic power in his body, but the judgment is very weak, and it is completely incomparable with the previous guildas. "Yes, do you want to entrust the work? Please go to the guild. Mage cannot take over in private." The blonde man calmed down. "No, just asking for directions." Qinyang said. "Where is the headquarters of the Magic Council?" The man was stunned. The so-called council is an organization in this world responsible for maintaining order in the magic world, consisting of a speaker and 9 members. The main work includes monitoring the actions of various wizards' guilds, punishing illegal guilds and hunting down the dark guilds. The Magic Council has branches all over the continent. It can be said that it is a huge organization in this world that transcends national power. Even if there is something wrong with ordinary people, they just look for the branch, but Qinyang is the headquarters when he opens his mouth, which obviously makes the young magician unable to react. "Although I don't know what your business is, the council branch is not far from here." He thought about it and replied. "No, I'm asking where is the headquarters." "The headquarters is far away. You take the train from the station, and you need to change stations many times along the way, which takes at least half a month." A train is a train. It takes half a month to take the train, which is really far away. It is estimated that it is thousands of kilometers away. Qinyang thought for a while, then asked, "Which direction is it?" "Due to the west." The man gave Qinyang a strange look and couldn't help shaking his head. "I think you can buy a map. There is a magic house in front of you, and the magic map there is very comprehensive." "Thanks." Qinyang Isho turned to leave, but suddenly stopped and handed out a black card. "Cut. This is a thank you gift, please accept it. If you have any difficulties and need help, you can face this card and say the word, Shadow Demon. However, remember, it can only be used once. Then, see you by fate." Quote. Fu at. Man took it in a daze, took a few glances, and muttered, "Strange man." He touched the card and couldn't feel what material it was made of. It was very strange. Shaking his head, he went deep into his pocket and was about to put the card in his wallet when he was suddenly startled. No, the wallet is gone. Asshole, it's the same person just now. He suddenly raised his head and looked in the direction Chin Yong was going, but no one was there. At the same time, Chin Yong had walked into the magic house introduced by the man, and spent 10,000 J to buy a detailed map. After that, he left here and found a hotel to stay. I have to say that the passerby man is quite rich, and he carries more than 200,000 J in his wallet, which is roughly equivalent to 10,000 RMB in terms of purchasing power. For a mere 200,000 J, you can ask the shadow demon to take action once. It's a good deal. Chin Yong smiled, walked into his room, and then closed the door. Then, he turned his body and turned into a shadow demon. There are general directions and distances on the map. Since this is the case, then the shadow demon can jump directly in space. Thinking so, he closed his eyes. The next moment, consciousness came to the starry sky map. The sky is full of stars, and each star represents an intelligent creature. They shine in this star map, and they all represent a coordinate. According to the general rules of the past, Chin Yong found some of the brightest stars in the west direction, and then his consciousness sank into them. Immediately afterwards, the sky and the earth changed, and the space jumped. Magic Council Era. This is a Western-style castle as a building, very magnificent. On the top floor of the building, there is a large conference room. In the meeting, 10 commentators are taking their seats one after another. One of the young and beautiful women stretched out her slender fingers and controlled a crystal ball in the air. The crystal ball flew up and down in midair, and suddenly fell to the ground, shattering with a snap. The woman was stunned, her fingers drew a circle, and the crystal ball quietly returned to its original state. The woman held these chins and continued to play with the crystal ball in a boring way. Enough is enough, Yulusha. On the main seat of the conference table, the speaker is a fat old man with a long beard. At this moment, he can't bear to roar. Meeting time, keep quiet. Because it's too boring. The woman called Yulusha smiled and said, "That's right, Lord Chikrian. Yeah, this boring world." The person who spoke was a young male, handsome in appearance, with a tattoo on his right eye, short sky blue hair, and a stern smile on the corner of his mouth. "Why can a person like you become a commentator?" Someone couldn't help but said, shaking his head again and again. "Why, the reason is very simple, because I have high magic power." Zikrian Isho, as long as the magic power is high, it is so simple for a judge. "Oh, is it?" Suddenly, a voice sounded out of thin air. In an instant, the 10 people sitting all changed their expressions, their eyes narrowed slightly, and they released their perceptions, but they failed to detect any abnormality. "Who?" The speaker looked ugly. "Your Excellency broke into the Senate, don't you dare to show up." He. Light laughter sounded, and I saw wisps of dark smoke on the conference table, like a desert castle, slowly piling up a figure. This figure, just like that, appeared under the eyes of 10 people. "Everyone, good evening." "Who is your Excellency?" said the speaker ill-naturedly. "My name is Ying Yao, Dream Messenger." Ying Yao sat at the conference table generously, with a posture full of extravagance. "I am here to announce something." However, at this moment, Yulusha's finger moved, and suddenly, the crystal ball flying in the air turned into a silver bullet and shot at the shadow demon. No one expected this sudden action, but he was somewhat guarded. But the shadow demon didn't notice it, and instead looked at the woman playfully. "If I were you, I wouldn't be so reckless." Between the words, with a swoosh, the crystal ball seemed to pass through a phantom and a smoke, passing through the shadow demon's body, and finally shattered a stone pillar in the conference room. Boom. "What?" Yulusha was stunned. "Yulusha." Shadow demon grinned and stared at each other, are you mentally prepared for waiting for me to be provocative? Between the words, he pointed in the air. Under this finger, the shadows in the room suddenly came to life, rose from 2-dimensional to 3-dimensional, turned into shadow touches, and grabbed them in an instant. Chapter-561 The Most Vicious Dark Guild in History. Second update. I have been reviewing the original fairy tale novel all day today, and I will write the third update tomorrow. I can't bear it anymore, my eyes are sore. With one finger of the shadow demon, several shadow tentacles immediately appeared, suddenly turning from a flat shadow into a 3-dimensional, grabbing at Yulusha one after another. Yulusha has long black and red hair, white hairpins, blue pupils, and is wearing tights. In the face of the shadow demon's counterattack, she seemed relatively calm, and she had already left her seat when she moved. The next moment, with a snap, the seat was shattered by shadow tentacles, and these shadow touches, still unabated, aimed at her and followed them away. Can I ignore physical attacks? Yulusha glanced at the shadow demon with interest, and easily avoided the attack of the shadow touch. What appears here, shouldn't it be your body, similar to the magic of your clone? Interesting. Chikrian raised his eyebrows, looked at the shadow demon quietly, and said, you sneaked into the council at night just to fight Yulusha. He didn't wonder why the other party recognized the people present, which is not surprising at all. As a commentator, intelligence information is disclosed, and it is easy to find out if you are interested. In contrast, everyone is more curious about the origin of the shadow demon. Huh. Hearing this, Qinyang laughed and immediately retracted a finger, and with his movements, those shadow touches chasing Yulusha quickly dissipated, turning into black smoke. Your Excellency just said that you are a dream messenger. At this time, the speaker said in a deep voice, the messenger is very understandable, but what is a dream? What do you think a dream is? Qinyang asked back. Judging from common sense, it should be an organization. The speaker snorted coldly, but I've never heard of it. What's your purpose here? I'm a messenger, to put it bluntly, I'm a messenger. Qinyang smiled and said slowly, this is the end of the night, just on behalf of me waiting for the dream to announce the news. What? The deputies looked at each other in dismay, and immediately a few people secretly accumulated magic power and prepared to subdue the people in front of them. Although the other party seems to be very strange and can ignore physical attacks, it does not say that they cannot be subdued. Announce what? The word, announcement, is not very good. For the commentators here, it is more like a word used by the superior to the inferior. My message is simple. Qinyang grinned and smiled. Today, we will officially form the most ferocious and evil dark guild, Dream, in history. What did you say? Dark Guild. What does dream mean? Hearing this suddenly, several people even suspected that something was wrong with their ears. Yeah. It's like a thief going to the police station and saying to the police chief, I'm going to commit a burglary tonight. It's daring and ridiculous. Why, can't you hear me? Need I say it again? M. Qinyang talked eloquently, with a calm face. Dream, like a dream, everywhere, everywhere. Commentator Chikrane, you said just now that this world is boring. The blue-haired man smiled, squinting at the shadow demon, and said, it seems that the future won't be boring. You guys are so daring to sneak into the council, I think this world will become lively soon. I have to correct one of your mistakes. Qinyang shook his finger and said, the word, sneak, is wrong. You may think that the magic circle outside can prevent intruders. Isn't it? Not far. The protection of this place, to me, is the same as my own backyard. When you go home and walk in the backyard, do you use the word sneak? Qinyang sneered. His attitude was extremely arrogant. When many commentators heard this, they were immediately furious. HMPH, since you say that, I don't think you want to leave. An elderly woman shot angrily and slapped it out with a palm, and suddenly a gorgeous orange magic circle appeared in the air. Immediately afterwards, in the magic circle, flames ignited rapidly, and then slammed into the shadow demon. Ignoring physical attacks, I feel like I can be lawless. Seeing this, Qin Yang pouted, raised his hand and greeted him. Immediately, black smoke billowed like a net pocket, engulfing all the flames at once. The flame wrapped in shadows shrank rapidly and disappeared in the blink of an eye. It's so hard to light a candle at this little fire, and you still want to deal with me. Qin Yang then sneered, have you, the commentators, been sitting in the position of judges for a long time, giving you the illusion that you are actually strong? What did you say? Another person was full of anger and punched out. Qin Yang did not dodge or evade, and let the opponent blow his head with a punch. But it was only limited to this. The broken head turned into black smoke repeatedly, condensing and forming again. You guys, that is, Yulusha, are barely worth seeing, and the rest are garbage. Qin Yang haha isho, jumped out of the conference table in a jiffy. I was invaded so easily, but I couldn't, and finally let me run away. If I were you, I would have no face to continue to be a commentator. Hurry up, resign, go home and learn the basics of magic. Want to run? The speaker stood up abruptly, clasped his palms together suddenly, and scolded, super ancient document. Cage of imprisoned tigers. Boom. A magic circle suddenly descended on top of Qin Yang's head, and then turned into a cage, sealing it in an instant. How can you ignore physical attacks? Then seal your magic power together. The speaker snorted coldly, now, please explain to me well, where are your dreams, who are your members, and what are your goals? Quote. He. Qin Yang glanced at the magic cage where he was imprisoned, shook his head and said, ancient document magic is a magic that compresses intelligence and transmits information to an object at a fixed point. On the other hand, super ancient documents can detect targets based on ancient documents information, and based on the information, search for countermeasures against the enemy. Quote. Between the words, Qin Yang grabbed his right hand and instantly ripped apart the space. Unfortunately, I was wrong from the beginning. Who told you that I rely on magic to ignore physical attacks? What? Speaker turned pale in shock. Tear the space with your bare hands. Who the hell are you? This kind of ability, this kind of magic, has never been heard of before. Of course, what surprised him even more was that this kind of character was just a messenger running errands, while the rest of the Dream members were fans. Goodbye, the Senate. Qin Yang stepped into the shadow world. If you want to know, just go and investigate it yourself. But hurry up, if it's not in time, he. With a flash of light and shadow, the entrance to the shadow world was closed. Subsequently, the super ancient documents also disappeared. The speaker's face was ashen, the other party disappeared from under his eyes, and he was helpless, and he didn't even know what kind of magic the other party used. Could it be ancient magic? The speaker glanced at Yulusha. This woman also mastered ancient magic, but since just now, she has been watching the play, and she has no intention of blocking. The most vicious and evil dark guild in history. Thinking of this, the speaker immediately ordered, notify all regular guilds to investigate the information on Dream, and set the task level to S level. Chapter-567-Elsa Shukulet_. Lingfang Zuonia's nearest city, in a hotel. Qin Yang opened his eyes, changed his body, and changed back from the shadow demon back to the human form of Deathwing. After me messing around like this, the council should vigorously search for traces of dreams, and even issue commission tasks to some regular guilds. At this time, as long as I deliberately reveal a little clue, a powerful magician will come to the door. Quote. The plan is very good. First alarm the council, and then attract the attention of the regular trade union, wait for the other party to come to the door, then suppress the magicians, and then transcribe the other party's magic. In this way, a large amount of mysterious power can be easily collected, which is very comfortable. Now, there is a lack of a stronghold. Since it is a dark guild, of course there must be a guild stronghold. The Dark Guild, which represents the general name of the guild organization of the dark side of magic, is not recognized by the Senate because of illegal commissions, such as assassination, which is only the low-end business of the Dark Guild. On this continent, there are many dark guilds, and there are no exact statistics on how many there are. But among them, there are 3 major dark guilds, the most powerful, collectively known as the Baram Alliance. They are 6 demon generals, Devil Heart, and Gate of Hades, especially the Gate of Hades, which is extremely powerful. Of course, Qinyang has no interest in taking care of these for the time being. The main task at present is to find a stronghold first. Finding a weak dark guild and grabbing their nest is the easiest way. Well, this method is not bad. When he thought of it, he did it, and Qinyang immediately began to listen to the news of the Dark Guild. Near the hotel, there is a bar where mages gather. Since you want to inquire about the Dark Guild, it is of course the most suitable place to find a lot of mages. At this time in the evening, the bar is very lively, and many wizards who have been busy all day will choose to come here to relax for a while. Qinyang pushed in the door and didn't attract much attention, only a few people cast their gazes. He walked to the bar and sat down directly, a glass of whiskey. After ordering a glass of wine at the bartender, Qinyang observed it without a trace. There were about 6 or 7 groups of people in the bar, chatting with each other, very noisy. However, on one of the tables against the wall, Qinyang discovered a rather special character. She is a woman, and she is quite beautiful. It can be said that she is naturally beautiful. On her delicate face, she has an expression that is cold and that strangers should not be approached. The woman wears the armor of a knight, the upper body is watertight from the neck down, and the lower body is a short skirt and boots. In addition, beside the table, there are piles of salutes that are as tall as one person. Very familiar woman. Qinyang was stunned and pondered for a while, could it be so coincidental? Long wine red hair, knight armor, a chocolate. Guessed, the whiskey you ordered. At this time, the bartender handed a drink to Qinyang. Qinyang snapped his fingers and said with a smile, "Did you see that woman over there? Bring a cocktail over there." Hearing this, the bartender Vivi was stunned for a moment, then looked at Qinyang handing out a banknote with a face value of 10,000 J, and nodded immediately with a smile. At the corner of the wall, a woman with long burgundy hair was drinking coffee quietly. She had just completed a mission to slay demons, and on her way back to the guild, she took a rest in this town for a night. At this time, a bar came over with a drink and put down a cocktail. "I didn't order this." The man asked for it. The bar looked in Qinyang's direction, and upon seeing this, the woman with long wine red hair followed her gaze, but frowned. She doesn't want to drink, but the other party seems to be kind enough to invite her for a drink. How to refuse is a problem. While he was still thinking about it, Qinyang had already walked over, sat down directly, and said, "What's your name?" "Huh. You are a mage, and I can sense that there is a huge amount of magic in you." Qinyang turned his eyes and looked at the woman's chest. Of course, he was not looking at the chest, but at a pattern on the armor. It was a red guild crest, representing belonging to a certain mage's guild. Fairy Tale. Qinyang nodded. "Sure enough, you are Elsa Chocolate from Fairy Tale." It was a coincidence that he only met Gildas during the day and Urza at night. For Qinyang's approach, Elsa still has the temperament that no one is near. "I'm sorry, I don't drink." At this moment, at the next table, 4 male wizards cast a glance towards this side. It turned out to be Fairy Tale. As that woman in armor, the legendary Fairy Queen. Damn, she's a good woman, but she was taken first by that kid. It's too loud, idiot. Don't forget our mission. Mr. Avery Gower will be furious. The 4 of them talked in low voices, and one of them suppressed his voice and said, "Let's go." With that said, the 4 got up one after another and prepared to leave the bar. Although their conversation was very soft, it still fell into Qinyang's ears without a trace. "Ellie Gore, so that's the case." He suddenly felt in his heart, and then secretly said, "It's really good luck, I met the Dark Guild when I went out. Ellie Goal. Chocolate also heard a trace of the conversation, and she frowned, as if recalling, where did she hear this familiar name? You want to know? Seeing this, Chin-Yong chuckled lightly, leaned closer to the other's ear, and said, Dark Guild, Forest of Iron. It's him. Urza's eyes widened, then her eyes narrowed. Thank you for the information and wine. Saying that, she stood up suddenly. Her face hesitated for a while, then she closed her eyes and drank the cocktail, then took a picture of the banknotes, and she didn't even want her luggage, she chased it out. As expected of the Fairy Queen, the sense of justice is overwhelming. Chin-Yong shook his head with a light smile, took a sip of his drink, and then greeted the bartender, saying, Please take good care of these salutes. Okay, guest. As soon as the bartender nodded, he saw Chin-Yong also chasing out. Iron Forest. Remember that it is one of the subordinate guilds of the 3 major dark guilds, 6 demon generals. However, it doesn't matter, since you have encountered it, you can just wait for my dream to use your stronghold. Chin-Yong followed Urza unhurriedly and followed quietly. These people are all mages, so you can try it. Can you transcribe their magic? Also, Urza is an S-rank magus, so her magic should be fine. Between words, the 3 parties fled, chased and followed, and soon ran to the outskirts of the town. Finally, in a remote place, the previous 4 stopped. One of the pineapple-headed men snorted softly. Fairy Tale, what are you doing? You guys mentioned Ari Gull just now. If I remember correctly, he is the ace mage of the Iron Forest of the Dark Guild. Urza stopped, her eyes calm. Tell me, what are you planning to do in the Dark Guild? At the same time, on the side of the hill, Chin-Yong calmly folded his chest and watched the play. What nonsense, hurry up and fight. Bastard, it's that kid who hit up a conversation just now. One of the group of 4 said angrily, since you dare to chase, kill him first. Chapter 0578 _ I am also a Dark Guild. The first update _ I'm almost finished reading the manga. I'm blind. Mebus actually has a sun left pointing arrow. Left pointing arrow close black lens bracket. Pick up a kid. Chin-Yong raised his eyebrows. I hate people giving me random nicknames the most. Do you want to die? It's you who will die. The long-nosed man in the hood jerked his right hand. I saw 5 black bandages appearing on top of his 5 fingers. The bandages were like living creatures and shot towards Chin-Yong in an instant. Be careful, Urza immediately shouted with a startled expression. She didn't feel the magic power in Chin-Yang's body, so she judged that the other party was probably just an ordinary person, and the difference between ordinary people and magicians was like a baby and an adult man with a gun. Worry about yourself, Goblin Queen. The pineapple-headed man slashed, put his hands in his pockets, and stomped his feet. In an instant, a magic circle opened under his feet, and then a shadow of darkness spread out from under his feet and appeared behind Urza in an instant. Shadowbound. These dark shadows, like ropes, suddenly burst out from the ground, trying to trap Urza. Shadow magic. In the face of the attack, Urza was in no hurry. She held her right hand in the air, and a magic sword appeared immediately under the white light flashing. The golden light flickered, a sword swept across, and in an instant, all the shadows were cut off by a sword. Disguise magic, shadow magic. Above the hill, Chin-Yong Vivi turned sideways and calmly avoided an attack, but his eyes were focused on Urza. In his pupils, various magic runes flashed, and they were quickly analyzed. Where are you looking, bastard? The long-nosed man was furious. He moved the 5 fingers of his right hand, and the 5 bandages that were avoided by Chin-Yong were immediately flexible like snakes, twisting and twisting in the air, and then locked Chin-Yong in a circle. My name is Ray Yule, sir, you can die if you remember it. Chin-Yong glanced at him and frowned slightly. Your magic has no value in analysis. The mysterious power it contains is too weak to be worth mentioning at all. Saying that, Vivi stretched out his hand, and suddenly, 5 black bandages suddenly lifted his wrist. Chan Rao. Speak unintelligible nonsense. Ray Ewer snorted coldly, and after making sure to grab Chin Yong, he immediately pulled the bandage to pull him off the hill and slammed into the ground. However, when he tightened the bandages, his face suddenly stiffened. The 5 bandages were extremely tight, but he felt as if he was pulling on a mountain, and the other party didn't move. Stupid. Chin Yong grabbed the 5 bandages with his backhand and pulled them gently. Suddenly, Ray Ewer's body rose into the air and slammed into the mountain wall beside him. Do you know how much I weigh? Over 100 tons. Chin Yong couldn't help but sneer. He is now Deathwing. Although he has transformed into a human form, the weight of his body is completely controllable. What? Ray Ewer paled in shock, and his body uncontrollably plunged into the mountain wall and passed out. At the same time, Urza also easily dealt with the man with the pineapple head, with a sharp sword on the opponent's neck. Say, what are your dark guilds planning? You talked about the magic flute in the tavern before. Don't know what you're talking about. The pineapple-headed man's face sank, and he didn't mean to answer at all. Seeing this, Chin Yong jumped lightly and jumped off the hill. Wait, don't kill him. Huh, Urza looked at Chin Yong and said, are you also a magician? Among the 4, only his magic is more qualified. Chin Yong didn't answer what he asked, and after walking in, he placed a palm on the forehead of the pineapple-headed man, transcribing. Boom. The face of the pineapple-headed man changed, Vivi trembled, sweating profusely, and he screamed, as if his magic was being forcibly stripped away. Ah, what did you do? Lito's face turned pale, his body twitched, and he finally fell backwards. Seeing this scene, Elsa was stunned. This guy told her not to kill, but he did it himself. You killed him. No, I just sealed his magic for a few days. Chin Yong babbled nonsense, turned to look at Ursha, and said, next, it's you, Ursha Shukalite. What? Hearing this, Urza Vivi frowned. Your magic is to dress up a magic knight. The specific function is to summon all kinds of weapons from the magical space. Different weapons and armors can strengthen your magic power to varying degrees. Chin Yong talked eloquently. I have only completed 1/3 of my analysis of you. You need to change your clothes a few more times. What do you want to do? Elsa stared at Chin Yong and said defensively, get out of the way. Seeing that the two were in conflict for some unknown reason, the remaining 2 of the 4-member group looked at each other, and then quietly retreated. The next moment, they caught and ran. Come on, go back and tell Mr. Eli Goyle. The 2 were fat and thin, and their movements were extremely sensitive, and they ran several dozen meters in the blink of an eye. Who told you to run away? I still have something to do with you. Chin Yong flicked his fingers, and immediately projected a spark. This spark landed at the feet of the 2 of them going, and instantly set off a raging flame. Boom. The flame was like a city wall, swallowing the 2 at once. Seeing this, Urza was taken aback. Who are you? The Mage of Fire. However, you can't feel the magic. Hearing this, Chin Yong chuckled twice and said, I am Neltharion, the great master of dreams. In your words, S-rank no, SSS rank mage. SSS class. Is there such a level? Urza doesn't know why. The strong ones who stand out among the many wizards will be awarded the title of S-rank after passing the test, which means super. She is an S-class mage herself, but she has never heard of SSS class existence. No, it doesn't exist at all. Are you kidding me? Urza's eyes were sharp. He. Chin Yong laughed twice and said, Alusha 3.1 Carlet, before I start, let me ask you a question. What? Are you interested in joining my waiting list? You have great potential, and my waiting needs a daily management. In fact, Mirajan from your guild is more suitable, but since I met you, I'll just ask. I refuse. Without even thinking about it, Elsa pointed her sword at Chin Yong and said, Anyway, get out of the way, these 4 people are from the Dark Guild. During their conversation in the tavern, they revealed some plans. I have to figure it out. Dark Guild, Iron Forest. I have something to do with them, so I can't leave it to you. Qin shook his head and said playfully, besides, I forgot to tell you that I am waiting for the dream, and it is also a Dark Guild. Hearing this, Urza has already killed her with 1 sword. You're really kidding me. Chapter 0579_2 Mysterious Runes. Second update. I'm so tired. I'm famous for making up for it. Hearing the words, Dark Guild, Urza no longer hesitated and attacked Qin. She approached quickly, and the sword in her hand turned into a sword light and swung it. Although they are called mages, they are not magicians, so in this world, a large part of mages are close combat. Swordsmanship is not bad. Qin praised him, and when he saw his sword slashed, he immediately raised his hand to resist. With a ding, the blade stood on his right arm, and the arm was safe, but the magic sword was suddenly exercised. Urza Shukalite's expression froze, and she secretly said, how do you exercise such a hard body? Or did magic power strengthen yourself? She guessed in her heart and was not sure, but said in her mouth, change clothes. The broken sword flashed white light, and the next moment, it turned into a long chang. The long chang was sharp and his spear shot out like a dragon, bypassing Qin protection and hitting Qin mouth with 1 shot. However, with a bang, the long chang shattered. What? Not even this one? She was taken aback and immediately chose to step back. Is this guy really human? Dress up again, this time, it's a whole body transformation. I saw its armor and long chang flashing white light at the same time, and the next moment, they all disappeared. Before changing into a new outfit, she needs to dismantle all her equipment, that is, to become naked, but with light to protect her body, she is not afraid to walk away. Of course, that is for ordinary people, and for Qin, these lights are similar to nothing. You, in good shape, little girl. He chuckled and joked, change it again, and I'll finish the analysis. Heavenly Wheel Armor. The brilliance disappeared, and a new set of armor appeared on Urza's body. It was a silver-white steel armor with 4 steel wings behind it, and a long steel skirt on the lower body. It's too late to surrender now. Nasario. Urza held her shoulders and looked at Qin seriously, and said, I've never heard of the Dark Guild's dream. I think it's just a small organization. At least lives can be saved. A small organization. He. Qin ha. Isho stretched out his hand and grabbed it. Immediately, there was a ripple in the space, and then a great sword appeared, Dragon Blood Guagong. Holding the sword in his hand tightly, Qin moved under his feet and approached with a bang. It's better for you to give up resistance. Although you are stronger, you are only as a general mage. So fast. Elsa's eyes flashed, and she was secretly surprised. The speed Qin showed almost exceeded the limit of her eyesight. This meant that the other party approached her within 0.2 seconds. Look at the sword, quote. Qin stabbed straight, piercing the space, and above the blade, carrying a spiral force. Seeing this, Urza immediately crossed her 2 swords to resist the stinging sound. Under the collision of the blades, a crack appeared on her magic sword again, as if it would shatter at any time. What a heavy stab! It's not magic, it's pure brute force, this guy. She gritted her teeth, and while resisting the attack, she whispered, Tian Lun Dazzling Sword. Between the words, she took advantage of her strength to step back. In the mid-air, countless lightsabers unfolded like peacocks, slowly unfolding, and then pouring down like rain. Whoosh whoosh. Performing acrobatics. Qin Isho took the sword and wiped it at his fingertips. The blade of the sword cut through the skin and was stained with dragon blood. Then, the dragon-blooded national light immediately made a sound of sword cries. Jianming bursts, like a melodious song. This is the dragon-slaying sword, let you see what swordsmanship is. Qin Yang's sword swept across, instantly arousing sword chi. The silver slash, like a dragon roar, went towards the countless lightsabers above the sky. After a flash, in an instant, all the lightsabers were smashed, lost their luster, restored the appearance of swordsmen, and fell one after another. Seeing this scene, Urza's eyes widened, her expression stunned for a moment. It's not magic, it's just pure swordsmanship. There is such a thing. Her weapon is a magic sword. No matter its sharpness, hardness, and lethality, it is far from being comparable to ordinary weapons. However, the man in front of him was holding an ordinary sword, and relying on pure swordsmanship, he easily broke her magic sword. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she wouldn't believe there was such a person. Dream, what is it? Urza couldn't help but feel a little curious in her heart. I was distracted during the battle, and looked down on me too much. Qin Yang shook his head, and with a movement, he was already behind Urza in an instant. Oops. Realizing that something was wrong, Urza immediately wanted to turn around. However, before she could react, her right wrist was already buckled, and she was easily subdued. Qin Yang clasped the opponent's arm, pressed his left hand on the opponent's shoulder, and said, "You have used 5 dresses in front of me, and I have finished analyzing your magic." What? Urza only felt that she was completely suppressed and very uncomfortable. What do you want to do? It probably hurts a bit, you have to endure it yourself. Qin Yang Isho said, transcribe. Between the words, a stripped power suddenly enveloped Urza. Urza's eyes widened, her delicate body was shocked, she felt a force invaded her body, and even invaded her soul, peeping at something in her from a very deep level. Ah! With a cry of pain, Urza's face was pale and cold sweat dripped from her forehead. This process lasted for 3 minutes before Qin Yang completed the transcription of Dressing Magic Night. It's much stronger than that, shadow magic. It's equivalent to a magic jade. Qin Yang retracted his right hand and saw 2 strange magic runes in his palm. They represent shadow magic and dressing magic night, respectively. These 2 runes, they are strong and weak. The stronger one contain the mystery of a magic jade or a devil fruit. Strength. And the weak rune is only 1/3. Just call it mystic rune. Transcribe the magic obtained, mystic rune. Qin Yang nodded in satisfaction, then withdrew his gaze and looked at Urza. Looking at it, he couldn't help but startled. The woman temporarily lost her magic and fell into a coma. Not only that, because the dressing magic couldn't be used, she returned to the naked state. Falling into a coma, Urza's brows were still furrowed. It doesn't seem to work if you leave it alone. Qin Yang scratched his head, and with a wave of his hand, he transformed into a robe and draped it over the opponent's body. Copy your magic, and I'll take you to the hotel to rest. After waking up, remember to help me spread the word, and put the dream name. Qin Yang smiled, and immediately separated the shadow demon, manipulated the shadow demon, and held the 4 people of Iron Forest to the shadow world. After that, he picked up Elsa, returned to the inn, and placed her on his chuang. After doing this, he did not leave in a hurry, but started to study the 2 mysterious runes he had started. It seems to be a kind of magic that can only be transcribed once. However, it doesn't matter. Now that you have 2 in your hand, can you open a new illusion? Chapter 0580_misunderstanding. Open black lens bracket. Yesterday's 3rd update close black lens bracket. The same kind of magic can only be transcribed once. This is the result of Qin Yang's first research after obtaining the mysterious rune. In the world of pirates, although devil fruit is a one-time consumption flat product, after being absorbed, the fruit will be regenerated elsewhere, which means that the acquisition of mysterious power is endless. The world of death, whether it is absorbing Bankai or condensing magic jade, is theoretically infinite. Only now, the same kind of magic can only be transcribed once. Although there are thousands of kinds of magic, in general, it is still limited. There should be other sources of mysterious power in this world. Qin judged this, looked down at the two mysterious runes in his palm, shook his head, and said, "To start a new transformation, you should only need one rune, but the first transformation of each world is very weak. Forget it, we will talk about it when we collect more mysterious runes later." Quote. Thinking of this, Qin got up and looked at the soft Chuang above. Shukalet fell into a coma, and it is estimated that it will take at least 10 hours to wake up. Qin walked to the edge of the Chuang, looked at the other person's face, and said in deep thought, "You didn't provoke me, I copied your magic, which will make it difficult for you to recover within a day or two. It's a little bit regretful. If that's the case, then cure it. Your eyes are even." This female 997 was miserable when she was a child. She was enslaved by the black magic sect. During a collective escape, she was considered to be the mastermind and caused blindness in her right eye. Although it is invisible from the outside, in fact, the right eye is a prosthetic eye. Thinking of this, Qin waved his hand and summoned the Holy Archangel, and then the Archangel projected a holy brilliance, and easily healed the opponent's right eye. This, Qin smiled and said, "So, goodbye, Fairy Queen." With that, he turned and left the room. Now that the members of the Dark Guild have been found, the next step is to go to the other party's stronghold and occupy the magpie's nest. After leaving the city in the middle of the night and arriving in the suburbs, Qin summoned the Shadow Demon again, and threw the group of 4 out of the Shadow World. "Where is this?" Fenglido was the first to wake up, and when he saw Qin face, he was startled. "You. What's your name?" "Shadow Mountain. Your life is now in my hands, as long as you answer me obediently, you can live." Qin said, "You are members of the Iron Forest. Take me to your lair." "What do you want to do?" Kageyama was very defensive. Qin immediately grabbed the opponent's wrist and buckled with a little force. Wait, I admit defeat, I say." Under the pain, Kageyama said quickly, "In the southwest, in the territory of Fury Kingdom, about 800 kilometers away from here." Kai. The Kingdom of Fury is a permanent neutral country on the Aslan continent with a population of 17 million. The regular guild, Fairy Tail, is within the territory of this country. Why? It will take about 3 days by car from the station here. Kageyama added another sentence, and at the same time secretly said, "HMPH in 3 days, when my strength is restored, I can escape immediately, and then report to Mr. Eli Gore." His magic is a shadow, similar to the Shadow Demon. His frontal combat power is not very good, but he is very good at sneaking and assassinating. As if seeing what he was thinking, Qin pouted, 3 days, no need, it's only 800 kilometers, we can arrive before dawn. Let's go." With that said, he picked up Yingshan, threw the other 3 into the shadow world, and then jumped into the sky. The next moment, he transformed into a giant dragon. What? Yingshan's mouth widened blankly, with an incredible look on his face. A person suddenly turned into a giant dragon. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he would have doubted that he hadn't woken up. You, what the hell are you?" Yingshan screamed in fright. "My name is Destruction Dragon, Deathwing Neltharion, one of the great masters of fantasy." Qin clasped Yingshan tightly and snorted softly, "Guide the way well, no matter how much nonsense I have, I will swallow you in one bite." "Yes." Yingshan was drenched in cold sweat with fright, his heart beating non-stop. It turned out to be a dragon. Giant dragon. A giant dragon that can transform into an adult. In this world, the dragon is one of the creatures standing at the top of magic, and any dragon is synonymous with power. See, hell, I actually met a dragon. No, why do dragons still exist in this world? Yingshan roared frantically in his heart, being held by the giant dragon's claws. He flew back as he watched the scenery below, his heart trembled. The next day. Hotel. Lying on the Chuang, Vivi's slender eyelashes trembled, and slowly opened her eyes. She was a little confused at first, and then suddenly remembered the scene before she fell into a coma. Neltharion. She stood up suddenly, and then suddenly found that she was actually naked, lying on a chuang. The next moment, her face turned pale, and she suddenly remembered some rumors. Women captured by the Dark Guild eventually lost their virginity, or were sold to slave traders. My head is so dizzy. Tethan struggled to get up from the chuang. She felt weak all over, and her magical response was very weak. This bastard. Change clothes. White light flashed, and a light armor wrapped her body. I saw the wrong person. I thought it was a gentleman, but I didn't expect it to be a member of the Dark Guild. I have to hurry back and report to the guild leader. She is still calm, not lost in the spirit of ordinary women. Neltharion. While muttering the name through gritted teeth, Urza walked out of the room weakly. At the same time, in the Kingdom of Fury, in a remote mountain forest. At the end of a mountain trail, there is a cathedral-like building. There is a broken wall outside the building, full of cracks. At the top of the church building behind the wall is a huge clock, and the time on it is displayed as 7:44. Walking on the mountain trail, Qin Yang sneezed, touched his nose and muttered subtly, "Have a cold." Lord Deathwing, it's in front. Yingshan had a bruised nose and a swollen face, and at this moment, he smiled and said as if to please. Previously, this guy wanted to run, but was caught by Qin Yang and beaten, but now he is much more honest. Don't talk nonsense, I can see it. Qin Yang waved his hand and said, you go to inform your president and let him come out to meet. Go quickly. Yes. Kageyama didn't dare to neglect at all, and hurriedly ran into the wall. As for escaping, he didn't dare. He ran once before and was caught at once. President, Mr. Avery Gall, something is wrong. Kageyama entered through the main entrance at once and shouted. There were dozens of people in the guild, and they greeted each other when they saw Yingshan entering the door. Yo, Kageyama, how is the mission? Have you come back? How about the others? The chairman is not here. Mr. Eli Gore just went out. Something is bad. Yingshan's face darkened, he covered his forehead, and said with a face full of fear, outside, there's a dragon outside.